Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Book Graveyard Vintage Genre Fiction channel. We have a very special episode, and we got very special guests here. And my guests are the Lighting the Pipes podcast boys, Scott and Josh.
Hey, buddy. Hey, everybody. Good to be here, Nick.
So, yeah, it was almost a year ago that we did the Yellow Dog.
That's right. Impressive. Like, I remember that, obviously. But I remember, I think, that we did the Ghost, right? Maigret and the Ghost. I think that one stands out a bit more in my mind for the conversation. But yeah, a year ago. Well, this is a thing, isn't it? Now we just do this every year, one or two, bash out a couple of Simenon.
That's what I was saying in the text. I was like, let's just start the Maigret podcast, man. Just kick this thing off.
Yeah, a little side series. Now, thanks for having us. It's awesome to be back.
Yeah, this is great. I'm very happy to be with you guys again, talking Maigret, talking books, talking mystery. It was really fun last time, and I'm sure it'll be just as fun this time.
Yeah. So if anyone's unaware, Lighting the Pipes covers classic mystery, but you guys also will do some spy stuff, the Gardner Bond series.
Yes, that is true.
Which is I just love. It's just it's pretty funny a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, Gardner can be that way, particularly when you get to like the 14th book or whatever it is we're on now. It's been a journey, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely our junk food read of the month or 2 months or 3 months that whenever we get to them, it feels very sort of like, we don't have to worry about all of this, formal literary breakdown. We don't have to worry about symbolism. We don't have to worry about maybe the politics a little bit, just to kind of get a connotation of what Gardner's talking about. But beyond that, it's rock candy is what it is. It's fun.
It's fun. Yeah.
It's fascinating to hear you guys go through that. And I'm glad you're doing it.
I
have some on my shelf, and I was like, why did I even buy these? And then you guys start talking about them, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll check this out.
And do you know what, buddy? Some of them are really good. Like, it's difficult when you're following up such a popular writer and also a popular character during the time the writer was still alive. Like, when you're following in that week, you're not going to, particularly if you're like writing them out every year, you're not going to hit the target all the time. And I think Gardner is a really, really good writer. Now, I've read nothing by John Gardner aside from a couple of essays he wrote about how to write, that kind of meta stuff. I've not read anything that he did. He's got another spy series. Like, I often wonder if he's contracted to write the Bond novels for a certain amount of time, or he was the writer for the 80s or whatever. And he just kind of sees that. Yeah, he just sees that as some bread and butter, and he keeps it going. It's easy to do, while the other stuff could be fab. I mean, you'll probably have people watching the show who know a lot more about Gardner than we do. We know him really well as a Bond writer, but I'm quite ignorant to the work he's done outside of the Bond genres. So I'd be interested to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, his name has become so synonymous with Bond. I kind of was like, oh yeah, he did write other books. They didn't just randomly pick this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like mystery novels, crime fiction, the pulp fiction, spy thrillers, even sort of like psychological thrillers. I'm not talking about like, the Cornwall Woolwich kind of stuff, or for example, more psychological crime stuff, but also sort of like I wouldn't say arty. I would say, just trying to think of an example, Scott, would be the Swedish one that we did. I forget the name of it. Dr. Gloss. Yeah. Like, that's something very different. That's sort of like Bergman meets detective fiction or something. I don't know how to describe that.
No, I think that's quite fitting description, actually. Yeah.
It's really cool that you guys go all the way back. You go back to the like 1900s. Yeah, have you done 1800s?
Yes, we did some 1800 stuff. We did some Poe, and obviously the early Sherlock Holmes is late 19th century stuff. We did the Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. I can't remember, Josh. Did that predate the Poe stuff we did? The Wilkie Collins?
Wilkie Collins did, I believe. I think Poe. Yeah. I could be wrong, because I know they were very close to each other, because I think we kind of lumped them in. I believe, because we did that collection of like the 3 Poe stories, right? Like Murders in the Rue Morgue, The Disappearance of the Girl, or what have you. And I forget what the other one's called. But then we did the Moonstone, I believe. I think that's how it went.
Yeah. And we did, though, Nick, funny you just said that. We did go back to ancient Rome. I think that's pretty far back, Josh, don't you?
But yeah, Falco, right? That's the name of the
Falco.
guy. Didius Falco.
Didius Falco. And then the Middle Ages. What's that? Cadfael. We did some Cadfael.
Cadfael, that's right. Yep.
I
I
think
remember
that was written later on, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it was,
Yeah.
I'm just holding the cats behind, but yeah.
I do know some people were appreciative of my breakdown on the Crusade, so thank you very much for those who have said that. I appreciate it.
That was me. I said it.
Yeah.
Those people.
I pride myself on my being an amateur historian and my fast facts, right? So that's kind of
Josh printed off. He had it changed to text, printed it off as it framed on the wall.
Yeah.
When I was like, man, that was really great.
Yeah,
it's just out of sight. It's just out of sight of the camera. I just noticed it. Oh yeah, there is that thing that Nick bestowed upon me, and I just like, yeah, I'm just going to. I guess I'll hang it up later. I don't know.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you guys do a great job. And then I was a guest last time on your podcast, which, by the way, they're not on YouTube. I keep trying to get them to come over here.
I know you do. You really do sell it. I mean,
you're pushing.
Maybe.
So I was a guest over there on the podcast, and we did John Dixon Carr.
Yeah,
that was awesome. Well, the episode was awesome.
Yeah, that was a fun conversation.
Yeah, it was. And it was a fun conversation. The book itself a little contentious, I guess, in terms of what we thought about it, but it was fun.
It was fun, yeah. And we'll keep it going. We'll keep getting you back and forth, and yeah, it's good, man. You bring a really good angle to the show too. That freshens us up a little bit, brings in a different perspective.
For sure. Get us out of our stuffy ivory tower, you know what I mean?
I definitely don't bring the academia, I'll tell you that.
More like the rigors, most like the post-mortem rigors of academia, more so than anything on our end.
Speak for yourself, Josh. I'm still standing, man.
It's all postmodern, man. It's all postmodern.
Yeah.
There you guys go, smartening up the channel again. What did I tell you about that?
We'll
see about that.
All right, so we're talking George Simenon's Inspector Maigret and the Burglar's Wife today.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to do it in the style of the Lighting the Pipes podcast, so everyone can get a feel for it. I really want people to go over there and check out the podcast. I love it so much. I love when I actually look forward to when I have a bunch of shirts to print, like the manual part of my job, the physical part, where I don't have to think. I don't have to answer emails and crap, but I can just print and listen to you guys talk for hours. And I know you've told me that you're like, oh man, it's a long episode. We're trying to get them shorter. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, do not. I'm like disappointed at the end of the 2 hours. I'm like, I can just keep going.
Well, that's nice of you to say. We do, we're long sometimes in what we say, but we enjoy doing the research on it. And Josh and I have had lots of chats with this. You too, Nick. We've had chats about this, but it's nice when you're reading something, and like with the Simenon, for example, and like you get an opportunity to learn something you didn't know before, and then that takes you down a little rabbit hole, and then you're like, you know what, we should probably share this because I didn't know it, and maybe the listener won't know it, and then you get yourself a little feature before you know it's grown arms and legs, and yeah, what might have started as a 50-minute episode becomes 2.5 hours, and we try to structure it as neatly as possible and timestamp them so that people can skip to the bits if it is too long for them. But we're doing literature at the end of the day, and we want to have something that we feel good about when we're done. And for me and Josh, that isn't so much about pocket sizing as it is we could go back in 20 years or something and maybe have a listen to this silly recording about a book and feel like we did that writer and we did that text and we did those readers justice. And if that's 2.5 hours, then that's just it. That's what we
mission accomplished.
We feel strongly about. Yeah.
Oh,
I think so.
It's funny too, because we also do like side projects as well. Like Scott did that thing on Charles Ultimate Doyle. He did the thing on the assignment books, for your recommendation there, Nick, and that was really great. And now he just did a recent one. I do my film noir stuff, and you mentioned, you know, how much fun research is, and research is fun. I love it. I love gathering up all the facts. I love writing it up as well. In terms of like writing huge long paragraphs of history and remembering things and connecting things to others. Connecting one point to another historical point and making all these connections that you can see how kind of, in my view, how incestuous old Hollywood was, maybe still is. But then it's putting them into paragraphs that you have to read out loud, and then you go ahead and start recording and reading your thing out. You're like, oh my God, I sound like an AI robot or something like that. Like, I'm going to offer you a free good time for like, I don't know, like, it's just really weird how it comes out sometimes. So you gotta, the real trick is learning how to write and sound like a human being. And
that's the trick. Wait, that's the trick to use.
That's all I will say about that.
The hardest part for me is sounding like a human being.
That's right.
Yeah, the hardest part is that. I definitely agree.
So I thought for anyone who's unfamiliar with the podcast, I thought if you guys could explain how you do the episodes, how we're gonna break this down.
Okay. Yeah, sure. So what we do on our show is we start off with a feature called the Fast Facts, particularly if it's a new author. Josh will go away for a week or so and like gather some sources, get some information, biographical stuff, any contextual stuff that we think would help feed into the writing or add a bit of flavor or perspective to the writing about the life of that author. Then that's what we do, and that's, you know, that varies in length, right? As you know quite well. It varies in length. Yeah, fast, right? Speech marks are quotes. And then after that, we do a plot summary. So I usually do the plot summaries. I'll spend some time taking notes as I read or after, and I'll write out, you know, however long it takes. And we then have, after that, 1-2 features, we do our pipes scoring. And Josh is usually the guy that leads off with the pipe scoring, but the acronym PIPES, which we've been using since we started the show almost 10 years ago now, is based on different categories. So it's an acronym, right? P for principal characters, I for investigation, so like the narrative, the actual investigation and kind of the style of the writing. The second P is for perpetrators, like your villains, your minor baddies or whatever. E for environment and locations and how the writer renders those, or how the story uses different settings, maybe exterior, interiors. And then S for supporting cast or secondary players. And we go through the minor characters in the story, and we give each category a mark out of 5. So our ratings are always totaled at a 25, and that gives us an index that we use to kind of score and rank the stories we read. It doesn't always explain our aesthetic feel or our casual feel for reading the book, but it's just the way we've always formalized our reading. And we know that it's not a perfect system, but it's our system, and we like it. It gives us a way to read the book and a filter to look through them.
I will say, since being the first time I was a guest on the show and breaking down a book with this form, with this template here, and it has really helped me review books now. Like in the future, okay. I use it. Obviously, I'm not just like copying it, doing exactly what you guys are doing, but it makes me pay attention to like, how important is the main character and how they react to things. Like, is it true through the whole novel? Yeah, to whereas cool. Before I was just kind of like gliding along, and whether it was more about enjoyment or not, but it really helped. It helped me do reviews. I love doing the reviews like this. I love breaking it down.
Oh, good. Well, that's great to hear, because we do know like that it's not for everybody, and sometimes you can microanalyze a text to where you're no longer enjoying what you're doing, and you're taken away from the pleasure of maybe even what the writer intended in the first place, which is just to boil up some plot and to have a good time reading their text, and put it aside and pick up something else. Like, that's a huge part of reading as a hobby and as a love, and we do that too. Not as much perhaps as we would like, but so yeah, it's nice to hear that you're getting something out of that, because for some other folk that's not the fun part of reading at all. But for us, I guess the way we've always done stuff like this, even before we did podcasting, Josh and I used to send stuff through the post and, in the mail and give each other little reviews of books and send text to each other. So it was probably always destined that we'd end up doing something small like this, But yeah,
we're cousins, by the way, just to clarify. To
family connection.
YouTube audience, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much like best cousins since like best friends since circa since I was born, because you were there before I was. So
it was. I set the ground. I set the foundation.
Yeah.
Get that right.
Yeah. Well, your sister kind of did, but yeah.
Yeah. Let's not bring her into this. Come on.
You followed into her. You followed in her footsteps. Yeah.
I'm not sure how. Maybe in terms of like being a sibling, but yeah, I don't think.
Yeah,
that's
much
literal.
That's kind of what I meant. But you were just saying about how people read things differently. Like we all go into books with our own biases, right? So I mean, having a formal review system is great to have. It just gives you numerical data you can kind of judge things and make everyone who goes. I personally, if I see a movie coming out that I'm interested in, I go read what my favorite critic has to say, because my favorite critic is going to tell me what he thinks about it, and that I'm going to probably be more in line with what they're thinking instead of a critic that I don't like, right? So if you like a certain podcast's book reviews or what have you, then what their perspective and their individual point of view is something that will appeal to some people and not everyone. So I think that's what's great about bringing a different perspective to a story or any text, is that it gives you a new perspective that you never thought of before. And and that's what I think that's another thing that we put out there too, is that we give our feels in regard to what our literary knowledge and analysis has given us after years of honing it, but also we offer you our own way how we think the world works, and you can do that through text, particularly fiction, and I think that's great.
All right, so now we're going to do the fast facts. Josh is going to give us the fastest facts you've ever heard. And normally this is the part of the episode where he talks about the author, but he did a very in-depth breakdown of the author in your guys' episode of Maigret and the Headless Corpse.
That's right.
Where we learned that George Simenon slept with 500,000 women.
Yeah.
I love how Jamadi brought that
That's
up,
a
by the way.
conservative estimate. Yeah.
What did you say, Josh?
I said I loved how Paul Giamatti brought that up, by the way. That was great.
He did. And when he did, I was like, thank you, Josh, because I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Nice.
So, yeah. So instead of doing the author bio, what are you going to do instead?
Essentially, what Scott kind of asked me to do, I wasn't thinking of it at the time, but when you mentioned it, it sounded like a great idea, just to kind of give us a portrait of Maigret, in his time period, in his zone, is just a kind of a breakdown of post-war France, leading up to 1951 and around that time, talking about what was going on in 1951 France in terms of cultural influences as well, just to kind of paint a picture of his world.
Yeah, okay, because this is the time frame of the book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds awesome.
Okay, so shall I begin?
Yeah, I'll hit the music.
So, post-World War II France. Big thing is this date, October 27th, 1946. This was the official establishment of what was called the Fourth French Republic, which was governed by the Fourth Republican Constitution of October 13th, 1946. It was a reestablishment of the French Third Republic, which lasted from 1870 during the Franco-Prussian War all the way to 1940, when the Third Republic fell, of course, to the Blitzkrieg of Nazi Germany, the Vichy occupation of France, the collaborators, all that sort of thing. Speaking of the Nazis and Vichy, they were toast at the end of the war. It was a pretty rough time for France. They had few resources available to feed the people and rebuild the country. And if that wasn't so bad, the infrastructure was broken. Bombed out cities and towns, battlefields, the bodies everywhere. There was a lot of cleanup to be done, a lot of people to be fed, and transport was very difficult because of this. So it was very slow bringing the economy back together. and bringing society back together. It was just civil chaos. And also they were dealing with the Vichy collaborators. Just to give you a general idea, the Vichy were French, and they were the ones that sided with the Nazis when they took over, and they sort of ran the French government for the Nazis when they were occupying it during the war. Their name comes from Vichy, which is the springs in France that you get the Vichy water from. So if you ever see Vichy water, that's where the term comes from. Now, for these guys, these collaborators, some got only life sentences, some got acquitted, others got firing squads or the noose. A portion of the women got it really bad, and these were mostly poor women who, for basic needs, food, shelter, feeding their family, they slept with German soldiers. And they got their heads shaved with swastikas in their head, in their heads in public. I mean, that happened in a lot of the Allied countries, but former occupied countries. But still, these are just poor. These are mostly just poor women who just had no choice during the war, and they're also probably victims of rape as well. So they just had no choice, if you know what I mean. There was a lot to sort out. The man in charge at the outset was Charles de Gaulle, the leader of the resistance forces, and he became head of the provisional government from 1944 to 1946, culminating with the Fourth French Republic. The French Fourth Republican Constitution was proposed and voted in by members of the government, the provisional government, on the 13th of October, 1946, as I mentioned. This was followed by the government being established. It was the same as the Third Republic, but they changed some things in the government, like amendments had to be done, alterations. They wanted to, de Gaulle was set upon a bicameral government, which means you have like two main bodies. In this case, there was one that was run by the president of the council, who was essentially the prime minister. So it was sort of a parliamentary democracy that they were trying to do. And then you had another who controlled the army and arbitrated all the inevitable conflicts that you would get, trying to build up a government like this from the rubble, essentially. And that was the president of the republic, the president, which was a largely ceremonial position, but he was still used to, kind of like the American president in that way. While he's the commander in chief, right? He is still like, there's still like, there's still the Congress, and there's the Senate and all these other bodies in control on top, below that. Only it's like a parliamentary system. So once established, this new government would continue the mandate that de Gaulle began in 1944, which was for a dirigiste economic policy, meaning seizing complete control of a soon-to-be established capitalist economy under direct government supervision to ensure economic growth. So that was the main goal of the government, was to ensure economic growth by any means necessary. Now, the main obstacle to this economic growth was that the country was almost reduced to rubble. German war reparations, they were a long time coming because Germany was in a worse situation than France was by this time. I mean, Germany was leveled. And then you have it also being basically divided, tore up by the Allied forces, right? United States, Russia, England, all that sort of stuff. They're trying to get their own piece of Germany. So thank goodness there was the Marshall Plan, that wonderful post-war economic booster that helped rebuild previously war-torn countries like Germany, France, of course, as well as Italy and Japan. This allowed France, in particular, to experience a 30-year explosion in economic growth. So it took 30 years for them to become a flourishing, prosperous nation after the war. It was a gradual climb. And that period is known as the Trente Glorieuses, which is like the 3 decades of greatness, essentially. The Marshall Plan ended, coincidentally, in 1951, the year in which the book was written. They had to pinch pennies for the remainder of the 40s. There was lots of rationing for food and other things, and a gradually climbing high cost of living, too. So that affected working class families who had to devote their paychecks to putting food and necessities on the table, leaving little room for luxuries, which coincided with a major housing crisis. Thanks to strict rents and construction delays, there was a shortage of places to live. A black market even popped up for renting apartments at this time. Like, I wonder, there's characters in our story, if you think of like Sad Freddy and Lofty, like, did they get their apartment that way, that little one that they were at, or the one that Maigret found her in? In 1951, other things were going on. The Korean War was in full swing. Pétain, who was the French hero of the Battle of Verdun in World War I, he was now the shame of France because he was the leader of the Vichy government. And he died on his little island, Napoleon style, 90 and senile in that year. In terms of the government of this time in 1951, Vincent Auriol was elected president of the French Republic, the first one of the Fourth French Republic, in 1947. And he lasted there until 1954. So he was in office at the time that Simenon wrote the book. Evidently, Simenon himself, was in New England when he wrote this book. If you remember at the end of the story, it literally says, I'm writing from Connecticut. So he is not in France at this disparate time. He was not happy, if you recall, at how the leftist the French government was becoming. He didn't like the change of that. There was always, we talked about how he had kind of right-wing sympathies, our friend Simenon. And, in 1951,
He didn't, but I remember you saying that, and I've noticed from reading his books, he never puts anything political, like in his book.
He tries not to.
They thought like the Germans were like, oh, it's okay. Like Maigret, didn't they like make some kind of Maigret thing or?
Oh yeah, I'm getting to that. There was there's actually, you can get it on Kino Lorber now, is the 1940s Maigret films. I think there was like 2 or 3 of them, and they were all financed by the Vichy government. So
yeah, because he didn't do any politics, so they were like, oh, he's okay.
Exactly. But he was arrested at the end of the war for being a possible collaborator too, as a lot of writers and authors were, and artists and whatnot. So it's hard to say. Even though he was like in Belgium or very close to the border of Belgium or something like that at the time, he was like, so he kept away from, that life, right? Or from that, or being associated with that government at the time. In 1951, the Cold War era, it was showing itself, in regard to this political change. Because the French government was divided between the main conservative delegation and an official communist party with a socialist party adjacent to it. So you had like a very conservative, the Roman Catholic, conservative kind of government voters having the same pull they had in the government, but then also that being contested by an official communist party in France, as well as a socialist kind of adjunct to it. So like we're not quite communists. I'm going by what people perceive as what socialists are. And that's very much different than that, of course. But there was basically a very divided government when it came to France at that time. Now, despite the fractious politics and cautiously optimistic economy of this time, France got plugged into the television industry. And the French film movement was setting up to begin the Nouvelle Vague, the French New Wave, because all those French film students and cineasts who got to catch up on Hollywood cinema from 1940 to 1945, when the product was banned by the Vichy government, by the Nazi government in controlling it, they were able to finally watch all these American films they never had a chance to see. And incidentally, what you were going on about, Nick, was the Maigret film during that time. And it was bankrolled by the Vichy. I myself have never seen it. I don't know if you know of anyone who has, Nick, no. But I'm curious just to see, what a pro-fascist Maigret is like. I'm very curious. Even if it might be very even subtle or veiled in that regard, right? It might.
I expect it would be quite subtle. Yeah.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, because who knows? They might just want to kind of give sort of like a very non-political version of him. Perhaps it's hard to say. Maybe there's some anti-Semitism in there that we don't know about. Who knows? So these young French men who found these American films at this time pretty dark and complex, with like sex and violence carefully controlled by the subversive filmmakers who made them. These crime and detective pictures were called black films. That's what these young Frenchmen called them, black films, film noir. These young men like Truffaut, Godard, Melville, they became, the French New Wave directors of that, of the 1950s. So they loved them so much that they imitated them in their own films. And this was something that was going on, I talked about the Marshall Plan, about American money going in, and now American culture was also coming into France as well. And they were finally seeing these films, seeing these books, experiencing this art and ideas that they were banned for 5 years in the dark time period in which the government, when the Nazis controlled the country, that they were able to experience them and filter them in their own way. So it was a big cultural burst occurring in the early 1950s in France. And in regard to that, the number one song in France from that year was from a movie of the same name, Sous le ciel de Paris, The Skies of Paris. And this particular musical comedy was very popular that year. And the song was sung by a French singer, obviously, named Jean Bretonnier. There was a cover by a singer named Juliette Greco that was even more popular, apparently. But that song itself was on everyone's ears in 1951 Paris. Also significant was Edith Piaf's Hymne l'amour, which she sung in the 1951 musical comedy Paris chante toujours. Side note, Piaf, La Vie en Rose herself, she was held for some time after the war for being a possible Vichy collaborator. So was Maurice Chevalier, but no charges were made. And I guess the same for our friend Simenon.
You're doing really well on those pronunciations, Josh.
Yeah, I was thinking, Josh, like for a guy who's worried about the pronunciation of French, wait till my summary, and then you're going to see. Then you're going to see it.
Well,
but that's good.
I do have Quebec across the river, so I mean,
yeah,
it must be osmosis. Even though it's a very different dialect and a very different cadence and comparison to it's a provincial French, it's a provincial French than the continental French, right? So I'm not going to make any more comment on that, but
no, not in Canada. It's not safe, man. It's not safe.
No, not safe. France, no surprise, given its long, exciting, complicated, tumultuous history, was, or at least its personification anyway, a history buff. Who knew? The best-selling book in France in 1951 was Mémoires de Hadrien by Marguerite Yourcenar, this nonfiction chronicling the life of Emperor Hadrian, and it was huge. For the fiction lovers, Samuel Beckett published his avant-garde novel Molloy that year.
Oh wow, that did he? That's a good book. I read that. Didn't like it first time I read it. Read it like maybe 5 or 10. No, not quite 10 years after graduating university. And I was like, wow, this is actually really cool. I think sometimes, sorry to just kind of jump in here, but I think sometimes when you're reading books like to a schedule and you're doing it not for necessarily fun, but because you got to write papers on them and stuff, it's kind of dull, or like you lose the fun in it, But that Molloy by Beckett, I remember now. Yeah, that's a good story.
And what way was it avant-garde?
Oh, like the prose, first of all, like, and I'm reading it in translation, right? But the sentence structures, like the character, he's an old man who kind of like moves through that. Look, anybody out there knows their Beckett way better than me. Jump in and correct me, but like he's an older guy who kind of moves through like the streets and the alleys, and lots of drinking, lots of kind of like metacognitive kind of working of his mind, stream of consciousness stuff. It's all
Maigret?
No, not Maigret. Beckett. We're talking about Molloy.
I know, but I see comparisons.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, buddy, but Molloy is a really interesting book. Yeah, I don't remember the plot because it's not like Waiting for Godot, which is kind of plotless. People would disagree with that statement anyway. But there is like a very loose plot. Burglary is actually part of it, like a theft of something. I just don't remember it. But
is it like a one of the beat writers or something?
No,
around that time.
No, Beckett is he's a playwright. I don't know, and a poet. Big figure in French literature. Others know more and better than I do. But he wasn't a beat writer of that generation.
I didn't even know he was French in my own ignorance. I was surprised to read that. Yeah. I always thought he was an English or an American author for some particular reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, his work is translated well, and it's certainly popular, across
Maybe
the pond.
I'm connecting Beckett with like Thomas Beckett, but then I realized that he would have been Norman French anyway. So
yeah, that's true. That doesn't work either, does it?
It doesn't, no. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So meanwhile, with all that cultural stuff, our friend Charles de Gaulle, he wouldn't become president until 1959, after the establishment of the Fifth French Republic. The fourth one that we just had created was dissolved on the 10th of October 1958. So what went wrong? Well, aside from the gradually iceberg speed economic upturn, losses in Indochina and eventually an uprising in Algeria led to a constitutional crisis. A government full of hardcore conservatives, communists, socialists with some moderates. It was a powder keg waiting to blow when the Algerians revolted. So things had to be changed. De Gaulle took over to right the situation. A new constitution was drafted, and the Fifth Republic was born. And so in 1951, all of this was going on and around the horizon for Maigret and the denizens of Paris.
All right, good. So
and Simenon's not in France.
He's not there. He's
nope, he is not there at all. He wants nothing to do with France at this time. Nothing.
All right.
He doesn't go back to France until some years later, because he's out in America betting, au pairs, right? So
as you do.
But he was in Canada first, wasn't he?
He was in Canada first, and then he went to, I think, out west somewhere.
It was Arizona, wasn't it?
Arizona, and then went back to Connecticut, I think, after that. And then he eventually went back to France like a couple years after that. After like his second marriage imploded on him or something. And yeah, it was pretty, yeah.
That was helpful, though. That was good, because
Simenon.
When the characters talk about, as they do, a couple of them mention, particularly Madame Serre, when she talks about like the recession, she's talking about the literal recession of a bottomed out economy and bombed towns and cities, right? Like the idea of saving, because we're in the very early moments of this rebuild in 1951. But that was helpful for me, certainly, because I was able now to understand there wasn't anything more specific than the war and the governmental changes that were causing recession, and that it was 30 years, you say, right? 30 years until it gets to a place where it's kind of self-sufficient, living under its own.
Le Trois Glorieuses, Le Trente Glorieuses. I was going to point out too that Paris itself, after the war, that itself wasn't rubble. I mean, there were parts of it that were attacked during the war, but the most of the damage, of course, was where the main engagements were, right? So towards the east, towards the Rhine, towards where the period where the Germans burst through, at the beginning of the war, and then of course you have all the fighting in Normandy where the Atlantic Wall was, right? So that whole area was war torn. All the cities of Normandy, like Caen and Rouen and all that, all these old cities were just like almost rubble, ancient cities and whatnot. So there was a lot to rebuild for sure.
Yeah, that's something I really learned from listening to your guys' episodes, is when you connect the real world history to the story, the time of the story when it's happening. And it's something that I didn't really notice. I mean, I noticed, but once you pointed out, you're like, oh, that is like, this is important. This is a very important aspect of the story, is what is going on in the real world at this time. And it's just like, just when we did the John Dixon car, when it was right after World War II and everything's all bombed out and stuff.
Yeah.
Like
London.
It's so, it really enriches the story when you know the background of what's going on in the real world.
It's kind of like, for that time period, maybe pre, meta culture, social media culture, it's sort of like the Easter eggs of that time period. I mean, you should be able to read any story, regardless of its time period, and enjoy it for what it is. But you get an extra layer of depth when you have all the extra geeky, details, right? And that's one thing I love about history, is that there's so many stories that are told that you don't know about. And then when you hear about these people and what they did, or even someone that you thought that you knew and then knew all this about them, or what this particular town meant, or what the significance of this little town and what happened in that field outside that town, why are there a bunch of graves there, and what happened there that has significance to the rest of the world, or even just to that country. And it's remarkable how much is out there for us to learn, and how much more context that we can give, just basics that we can give outside of just the basic stories of the books that we read, or the movies that we watch.
Hell yes.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, literacy.
Hey. So Scott, are you ready for your part, man?
Yeah, dude, for sure. This is the time where Josh usually yields to me, and I do a plot summary.
I yield the floor to you, sir.
You do, yes. Now, obviously, Nick, like, your viewers might not be used to having, these big chunks of other folk talking at them. So I'm sure by the time this gets to them, you'll have all, your jazzy videos and music playing, and it won't just be, oh, okay, so we come from that guy to this guy. It'll be a little nicer, I'm sure. But so I got a plot summary here to take you through the major and the minor bits of Maigret and the Burglar's Wife. And hopefully, if you're not familiar with the story, this will give you everything you need to enjoy our rating of it. If you are familiar with the story, then I'm sure your buddy Nick's he's gonna timestamp this for you. We never encourage people to skip the summaries because a lot of work goes into them, and I like going through them with listeners. But you guys, it's yours. It's like a bit of reader response. Once it's out there, you can do what you want with it. But for us, it's important. So, okay, we'll take you through the plot summary then. All right. It's Paris in a heat wave. Doors and windows are open. Wasps are flying around, getting trapped against the window panes. The sound of traffic and city jostle is more present than normal. Fatigue is contagious. Inside the Quai d'Orfèvre, there's restlessness about upcoming holiday time. Staff are antsy. You can imagine the scene, right? Well, if you can't, don't worry, because Simenon's got you covered. Detective Inspector Maigret is sitting in his office when he gets a visit from Ernestine Jusiem, once known as Ernestine Micot before she got married. And she's got a nickname, which is helpful, Lofty. And she's got a history with Maigret as well. She is a tall, very tall, blonde woman, now approaching middle age, who used to be known and be known among the prostitutes of the Porte Saint-Denis district of Paris. 17 years ago, Maigret arrested her for soliciting and stealing a pocketbook. There was more to it, but the scene turned farcical when she refused to put clothes on and ended up with him having to recruit 2 other officers and wrap her in a blanket like Cleopatra style and carry her out of the apartment. But Ernestine has not come today to revisit any old wounds, but instead to offer Maigret, and us too, the readers, the motivating incident for the case that we're about to explore. Her husband, Alfred Jusiem, aka Sad Freddy, another nickname, is a well-known safecracker, and he's gone missing after a job that he was doing up in Neuilly. Thank you, guys. in the northwest of the city. Maigret is aware of Sad Freddy, though he's never met him personally. His reputation on the force merges slightly with how the press tried to build him up as a bit of a romantic hero. He's a likable rogue. He suffers from epilepsy, and for whatever the reason, at some point, he turned from installing safes at the firm of Planchards to cracking them. He was caught once, served 5 years inside, but as the head of homicide, Maigret knows that he could pass this safe cracking thing over to Detective Boissier or someone else on the force, but he's interested to hear Ernestine out. She tells Maigret that she suspected Alfred had been away on a job because he took his bike at night, and he usually only does that when he's got something on the go. Early the next morning, about 5 o'clock, she receives a phone call from him saying that he's had to bolt from the property he was working in after his flashlight picked up the face of a dead woman in the corner of the room. He then heard a car pull up outside. So terrified, he dropped his tools and fled. Freddy had seen enough to know that the woman had blood on her chest and was holding a phone receiver in her hand. Freddy explained that he was going to disappear for a bit. The home was in Neuilly and had an iron gate, some of the details that he shared with his wife. But as he dashed out, he was spotted by a man in the house from above. It's a delicate situation now because if Sad Freddy comes back, he could have the finger pointed at him for a murder should a body then be reported to the police. So he ditches his bike in the Seine, and he likely takes a train from the Gare du Nord to some safer location. They think Belgium at the start. He promises to make contact when he can. Okay, so that's the motivating incident. So Maigret's interested by this. He agrees to look into it. And yes, Sad Freddy is a known small-time crook, but there's an honesty about how Ernestine approaches him that just about fits his own read of these people. Slightly sketchy people, but honest and wholesome. He calls Neuilly station, but there's no report of a crime or a body. He sits back and he reflects, and he lets his mind work, and he remembers the craziness of 17 years ago in that arrest. Seeing Lofty brought things back to him, the sights and the smells, and the drinks, the memories of the drinks. So he orders a couple of Pernots for himself and for Boissier in honor of those days. Now it seems he's got an investigation. It came from an old acquaintance, a past arrest, and it is stretching out before him with all kinds of future potential. So Maigret's instincts are telling him and us reading that it's absolutely worth getting stuck into. During the debrief, Boissier shares what he knows about Sad Freddy, and we learn more about the unlucky hands that life has dealt him. It's clear to us that Boissier has a way with his criminals too, and were it not for some poor handwriting and some bad spelling, he'd probably have passed his inspector's exam a long time ago. But Maigret is glad to have him along, and a mutual admiration is evident between the two. Boissier has a list of safes from Planchart's firm that have been installed, and a quick cross-referencing reveals that one in Neuilly, a property 43 Rue de la Ferme, would be a sensible place to start. It's a stately private home in an affluent area, and yep, it has an iron gate, Maigret is pleased to see. It is the home and the clinic of a dentist, William Serre. Across the street, just a little down, is a quiet cafe restaurant where the two officers take their lunch. In typical Simenon style, Maigret befriends the locals, this time the cafe proprietor, and he establishes what he can about the property. After all, if this is the house which Alfred worked in, and if a body really was there, then it would definitely be worth learning what he could before he enters. The dentist, Guillaume, lives there with his elderly mother. He's a quiet, complex figure who actually sneaks his drinks there at that cafe, suggesting that there's something restrictive or maybe even puritanical about the household. He's about 50 years old. He's not turned out terribly well. The waiter actually goes a step further and calls him seedy. A couple of years ago, Monsieur Serre was married. Now, the waiter then proceeds to ask Maigret something of a celebrity about the place. He asks if he'll meet his wife. It's not quite an autograph scene, but I found that was interesting. Maigret isn't very interested in doing that, but he says he'll return. And to his credit, he does return. He kind of makes that cafe something like a headquarters while he's doing his investigation there. About that time, Lofty, Ernestine, shows up with news that she has found Alfred's list of homes that he either installed safes in or has already burgled. She followed the Neuilly address, but she destroyed the list so that Maigret couldn't then have evidence against her husband for other jobs that he's done. She tells Maigret that she also found some money, which indicates that Alfred probably didn't go to this job to disappear afterwards. You know, he didn't have a great plan. He left a lot behind. And these details support Sad Freddy's conversation and telling of the story. Maigret and Boissier then head to meet William at his home, but they are informed by his mother that he is sleeping. Madame Serre is described by Simenon in very stark and dignified terms. She's quite a stiff figure. She's unwilling to cooperate until she learns that, oh, this is the chief inspector standing before her. The home itself is characterized by old furnishings and stuffiness, which match quite well the old woman's outward propriety. Both are products of a different time. Now, this is punctuated, I think, by the Nadar paintings. Now, we talked a minute ago about how the stories kind of teach you to learn stuff. I didn't know anything about this artist, Nadar. I may pronounce his name incorrectly. I apologize. But looking at his portraits was really quite striking. He's done some incredible stuff. And Maigret noted, along with these really impressive pieces of art, he noted in the atmosphere this soft, insidious smell, which gets us thinking as readers, like, what's he smelling? Like, what is it? He can't quite put his finger on it, but it reminds him of something. I had read Roald Dahl's short story called The Landlady quite recently, actually. I sometimes use it when I'm teaching around here. And I was thinking like, oh, it could be like a poison, could be like arsenic or something. But then the story takes off and I'm like, no, it's not poison. Well, hold my beer, watch this space. So Maigret's questioning of this old woman is excellent. It's skillful to an exacting degree. The outside temperature in Paris is humid and it's swooning, but man, it is cool inside this house when he's questioning her. He does not give the mother a chance to meander or play any of her self-pitying old lady ideas and cards, you know. He's indifferent to her wants. And you can tell by how often he interrupts her, just as she starts to try to lead him away from his line of thought. We can tell that he is distrustful of this place and of this person. Our suspicion is amplified when Monsieur Serre does awake from his siesta and makes himself known. Now, the description we're afforded is not complimentary. I will reduce it all to a quintet of adjectives: fat, hairy, pale, guarded, and rude. That pretty much covers how he treats, well, and is treated, in this scene. He's uncooperative. He denies having been burgled. He isn't happy about questions. Maigret and Boissier notice that there's a newly repaired window pane, which Madame Serre explains was a necessary repair after a storm the previous week. And her son likes to do jobs around the house anyway. Throughout the exchange, William is content to let his mum speak for him, which is interesting, as we're kind of paying attention to this. They're ushered out of the house by the mum because the dentist is getting quite kind of frustrated with them being there. But she apologizes to Maigret and Boissier for her son's conduct and then says, come back some other time when he's not here and I can answer your questions for you. Okay, so we're kind of two minds at this stage. We're thinking, okay, so the dentist's mom seems a bit strange and stuffy and quite rigid, but also she's welcoming the police back. So, maybe she's just, she's just stuffy and stiff, right? She seems to be cooperative at the end. Well, in contrast to that awkward scene at that property, Maigret's wife enters the story for lunch in a nice counterbalancing moment of domestic warmth. Elsewhere in Paris, of course, as elsewhere in Paris, the windows of Maigret's flat are open, or his house are opened, and they're eating outside and they're talking about their day. And we get nice moments like this in the Maigret stories. I remember, Nick, you talking back when we did our first one together about how you really liked when Madame Maigret came, because she's such just a nice presence in her husband's life, and definitely see it.
It's so wholesome. It's so sweet, and it's so it's such a real healthy relationship. And
Totally,
it's just nice to read.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. I agree. So we get some of that going on here at this moment. And I do feel like those scenes kind of help to ground the reader, as well as the inspector, I guess, but to kind of ground the reader in in just like the real world. Like, okay, you got this to come back to. So no matter how crazy or off the hook stuff gets in your job, this is what it's about. Sitting on the patio with your wife, just talking about your day and meeting up for a drink or whatever. Anyway,
middle class prosperity.
Yeah, man. And I feel like also, like, I'm not getting on a soapbox here, but so much of the world now is like filtered through the chase for celebrity and popularity and hits and downloads and likes. Like being a normal person is still pretty awesome. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's still pretty good. And these Maigret stories give me that feeling when they're at their best anyway.
Yes.
Right. So Maigret sends Inspector Janvier out to dig up information on William's supposedly holidaying wife. Okay.
Good old Janvier.
Good old Janvier. Her name is Maria van Ers. If mother and son can be trusted, we know that she's Dutch and she's missing home, and she went back to Holland to visit her lifelong friend. She had planned the trip for a while and traveling with luggage, including a heavy trunk. Now, details about cabs, times of departure, and other small things are recorded by Maigret during the chat, but I'll not go into all of those right here. We learn that Serre's wife is quite wealthy on her own accord, and she has a bad heart. So did William's first wife, by the way. Maria was a widow when she met William. It may not have started out like it, but theirs quickly became a marriage of convenience. Maigret feels the tension and knows that there's something going on, but he needs more data in order to put it all together. If Maria was the dead woman that Alfred reported seeing the previous night, then where did the body go? And it's quite telling as well that they didn't call in a burglary. And that's interesting. Why didn't they call in a burglary if what Freddie says is true, that he did burgle their home? So clearly they don't want the police sniffing around for fear of discovering something bigger. The next morning, Maigret checks up on Ernestine's story by speaking to the cafe worker atop whose establishment she lives with her husband, Alfred. All the details corroborate the phone call, spotting Alfred leaving at night on the bike. So he then pops upstairs to speak with Lofty herself, who gives him the name of the bar near the station where Alfred called from. Maigret follows up there, so you can see what he's doing. Like, he's stitching up everything that these two sketchy characters have told him, because if he could just be ironclad about what they've said, then he knows he can go after this dentist and well, maybe the dentist's mom too. Anyway, That bar is called the Bar de Levant. It's on the level 2. The bartender absolutely remembers him being there really early morning. He just put the coffee pot on, and he noticed how nervous the guy looked when he was using the phone. So these two scenes, very short, but they're important in insulating our trust in Ernestine's angle. And functionally, they mark a change in Maigret's investigation, right? The sketchy dentist and his mum are growing in suspicion as the potential angle that maybe Sad Freddy and Lofty are selling starts to go away. So of necessity then, Sad Freddy, less important to the story. We do get a couple more references to him, but he has done his job. He's brought us to where we need to be. Madame Serre then visits Maigret at headquarters, offering more polite and fulsome cooperation than he and Boissier were given at the house. Now, there's something about this visit that feels forced to readers, like why is William's elderly mother invested enough to go out of the way to visit the police? She'd already invited them back. So what's she doing, right? Like instead she takes up her agency to go to the station. So this is interesting. Maigret points out as much to her as well, but she asserts that, listen, were it not for my son's nature, all of this would have been cleared up yesterday. Maybe, maybe not. The house has nothing to hide, she says. So Maigret uses the opportunity to glean more about her daughter-in-law, Maria, and her departure. What was the state of the marriage to William? Where was she going? Who brought her trunk down the steps? What taxi company did she use? How was your son's disposition when she left? What other staff are in the house? Madame Serre's insistence on visiting all but confirms Maigret's suspicion that there is definitely something on now. After her questioning, he watches her decisive steps away from the street below and knows that time is of the essence, so he bypasses the station office at Neuilly and instructs a sergeant that he knows there by the name of Vanneau to carry out the next step for him. Maigret explains that it's pretty delicate because he doesn't have a search warrant, but Vanneau has to get over to the dentist's house and bring this guy in on any grounds possible before his mum returns home, basically. Regretfully, he stands up his wife in order to follow up on this, but Maigret rushes to Neuilly station, located on the lower level of a town hall, and the somewhat confused superintendent takes up the questioning of William, asking about his car and spraffing nonsense about an accident. He's trying to buy time until Maigret shows up. There was no cordiality in Serre's demeanor there either. Eventually he's released, but Maigret instructs Vanneau to put a visible tail onto him. Frustrated, Maigret returns to his office where Lofty is waiting for him. She tacitly gets the okay to put out the all clear for Alfred and takes her leave, noting as she goes that Maigret doesn't look very good. He looks quite frustrated about things. The phone rings and it's Janvier, with plenty of leads on Maria von Ertz. The first come from a boarding house where she used to live with many other foreigners, a tasteful sort of hotel commune. She used to write long letters to her friend in Amsterdam from this boarding house, and her name was Gertrude Oosting, this long-time pal. It dovetails nicely with something that we've already learned about Maria from her mother-in-law and how often she would spend time in her room writing letters, I should say. So Maigret puts out another tale, this guy named Sergeant Torrance, onto the dentist with the same instructions. Don't make a show of hiding out. If anything, I want you to be seen by Monsieur Serre. I want you to then put pressure on how he reacts and stuff like that. So back at the cafe on the Rue de la Ferme, if you haven't figured this out yet, and I apologize if I'm just doing it in a convoluted way, but Neuilly is up in the kind of northwest part of Paris. So there's like a lot of back and forthing in this book, like a lot of it. Maigret enjoys some more libations and he waits for Eugenie, the charwoman, to leave the home. So Eugenie is the woman who cleans the dentist's house, right? The conversation.
This is my girl right here.
Yes, she's great. She's really good. The conversation that ensues is both funny and revealing, bluntly declaring that her employers stink and that Madame Serre is just a bitch.
Yeah.
Maigret is keen to follow her back to that little apartment and learn a bit more. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to follow you home and I'm going to let you tell me everything you know about these guys. And she does, she's pretty fun. One thing that he discovers is that the letters that she wrote were actually part of a daily routine, and often her and her husband wouldn't speak for weeks. Predictably, more of the old woman's stiff countenance is also shared. But then he asks her about her work on Wednesday morning, just hours after Freddie fled from the house. Eugenie says that a window pane had been replaced that morning. She's almost sure of it. But the Sayers had told Maigret and Boissier that that window was replaced last Friday following a storm. So let's get down to the ironmongers, okay? This is where Eugenie says, look, you want to know who sold him the window? It's this department store here, part of this ironmonger shop. So Maigret takes leave of Eugenie and goes to this hardware department. And the young guy working there opens up his books and confirms that, yeah, he was here to replace a glass last week following a storm. And at first, Maigret's like, oh. But then you get this dramatic pause where, oh, hang on, I'm just going to turn the page of the ledger. And boom, sure enough, Wednesday morning, he was there, bought another pane of glass. So we know that glass window had been busted twice. So Freddie had broken in. Freddie knows. He's a safe cracker. He knows a weak window pane when he sees it, and he went for that one. So Freddie was there. The police had been lied to, and now he's got physical evidence in the form of the department store ledger linking to that effect. So we got an immediate spring in Maigret's step now. He's got knowledge of this. He's got some evidence, and he's got more than enough instinct. He's got physical gear to get that search warrant. Thanks to Janvier, Maigret is eventually able to speak with Gertrude Oosting in Amsterdam, who confirms that her friend Maria did not arrive as planned. Gertrude also reveals that Maria confided in her about her husband's lack of maturity and his unnatural predispositions towards his mum. Maigret asks her to send him copies of the recent letters that Maria wrote, but as a first priority, and this is quite a cool moment in the narrative, she needs to help him secure that warrant. And the fact that he does this I thought was really cool. So she's got to go to the police department with the last letter that her friend had sent, confirming her trip and expressing her worries that she didn't arrive. And Maigret tells her that she has to insist on an investigation. So she's kind of scratching her head like, oh, is this more serious than I thought it was? I just thought maybe she missed her train and hasn't got a letter to me yet in the mail. What's going on, right? Well, he works that same angle from Paris by contacting the duty officer in Amsterdam and requests that a telegram be sent issuing an official complaint of a missing person raised by this Madame Oosting. So he's basically got Oosting going to the police station and the police station in Amsterdam being told, you're going to be visited by this girl and she's going to put in a complaint. You just write it to me and send it to me, would you? And Amsterdam's kind of like, well,
what? Are you predicting the future? What is happening here?
It's really cool. But how often does the head of homicide, Chief Inspector Detective Maigret, get in touch and ask something like this? So, they follow through because Maigret is a known entity.
Cause celeb.
That's right. Yeah. But so the warrant and the subsequent search is important, obviously. But for Maigret, it's as much baiting as it is searching, right? Like he knows there's no body that's going to be found. He just wants to see how that household's going to respond to all of this pressure. So the hours of morning pass into the afternoon. Mother and son are calm, orderly. They facilitate the police visitors during this search. Maigret grows a bit frustrated, actually, with William's lack of show as he observes firearms and he learns other details about the family history that live up on the first floor. William really isn't given much up as he makes the tour, but he does share that his dad, ex-solicitor, his father was an ex-solicitor, was ill and careless with money in the years leading up to his death. Maigret eventually heads off to speak to his doctor, Dr. Dubuc, who oversaw the health of Monsieur Serre's two wives. Both, it's true, had heart problems and associated weight problems as well. Both were on medicine. The doctor also resides near the car garage where Serre stores his vehicle. And this was helpful because he's able to confirm that the car did move late at night a few days ago. So about 2 p.m., Maigret is notified that a heavy package from Holland has arrived for him by air. These would be the letters from Gertrude and her early morning trip to Amsterdam authorities. So when he returns to the home, Maigret decides that enough is enough. He leaves the team investigating with their fine teeth. And he tells William, look, buddy, get out of your slippers, put on some shoes and clothes. You're coming downtown. So he does. The questioning then begins downtown, outside of the house. But Serre remains a really cool customer. No, he doesn't want a lawyer. He insists he didn't kill his wife. He answers Maigret's questions with concise economy. Some new points are revealed, though, like his wife's suitcase having a false bottom for smuggling, so to avoid detection when crossing borders.
Oh, by the way.
yeah. By the way, I got this going on. Arrest me for that instead. More information seeps out of the discussion that reinforces the estrangement between husband and wife. There was no open antagonism, really, but certainly a lack of affection. Janvier continues the questioning while Maigret steps out to meet with the translator who's working on Maria's letters. This minor character, the translator, has a really big role because he is essentially tasked not just with translating Maria's letters, but resurrecting the character and the voice. He gives the only voice to the story of this missing wife. He's a nifty guy, and he's up for the challenge anyway. Maigret instructs him to work backwards, though, from the latest letter instead of chronologically from the start, which is just as well, because Gertrude has sent him like 40 letters, and I don't know how he's going to get through this in an afternoon in this diplomatic airmail pouch, but he does. The correspondence is revealing, and we get snippets of it brought to us in between the questioning of William in the room down the hall. It's quite an interesting cross-cutting that we got going on at this part of the story. So the questioning of Monsieur Serre is going slow, but it's going. Maigret knows it's going to be a late night. He begins to probe more personally into the relationship that William shares with his mum. It was she who insisted on her son's second marriage to keep him from loneliness and isolation in his older age and to ensure financial security. It emerges that Madame Serre has always been insecure about money and fearful that her inherited status would, under modernity's grasping claws, siphon off her wealth. Right? And we think of what Josh just shared with us a while ago about, like, this rebuilding, right? The recession that's going on. This anxiety was passed down to her son, clearly, and that would explain his storage of gold bullion and cash kept in a safe where the taxman can't get at it. But could it have been a motive for murder? Sensing an advantage, Maigret throws at Guillaume some physical evidence. First, we got eyewitness accounts of your car leaving its garage early Wednesday morning, as well as evidence that you purchased a second glass pane and putty from an ironmonger. Well, the son does not give very much away, but he plays out this psychological match by asking for a sandwich. Struck by the flash thought, though, Maigret leaves the station while the suspect sits munching, and he visits one of his old contacts, Maître Oren. Now, Maître Oren, Simenon tells us, was probably the oldest solicitor in Paris. Maigret uses this old man to dig further into the Serre patriarch's reputation, the old father who has passed away. He learns that Alain Serre was an old drinking and carousing pal whose life, quote, didn't revolve around family hearth, but behind the scenes at the variety shows, he knew all the chorus girls by their Christian names. Okay, so
I love that line.
He got around, he slept about, and he was a man on the town. But he had his wife at home, Madame Serre, and he chuckles. This old man, Oren, chuckles at the memories and even produces this sketch that was done by an artist back when he and Alain were enjoying a night out. They were both married men. The sketch depicts a party scene featuring a naked girl walking on her hands, her hair is covering her face. So Maigret definitely gets what he wants when he goes and he visits this guy. He gets proof that Madame Serre would have greatly disliked and feared her husband's revelry. Reputation and money both being shed and discolored through his society behavior. Coupled with her son's comments about mental health and reckless spending, Maigret now has a couple of more weapons at his disposal. Meanwhile, back at the station, Madame Serre sits patiently waiting for her son's questioning to end. Ernestine, Lofty, is also there, serendipitously, waiting to hear anything about if Freddie's going to be brought back. So it's quite convenient that the two of these are together. Momentarily, both of them are going to be put together in an official manner by Maigret in a very brilliant fixture. He tries to play mom and son off one another from room to room to get a confession as the night stretches on into morning, but both are really tough customers. They share the same domineering and stubborn faith. And so Maigret follows another great instinct, and he uses Ernestine quite cleverly. He blatantly plays on her experience with the police as an ex-prostitute and presents her as a lady of the night. She is naturally chatty and disarming anyway, so rather than coaching her to interrogate Madame Serre, he just simply lets her loose on the dentist's mom, which works to unravel her tightness about how much the police know and what might happen to my son. Ernestine really enjoys the job a little too much because she tells all sorts of lies about Maigret, how he will, use brutality to get his suspect to talk. And once he kept someone naked in his office for a full day with the windows open during winter. Like, it's crazy, right? The stuff that she says. But Ernestine's exaggerations do work to get her really unsettled. And this is then when Maigret goes in for the kill, right? It's about 3 a.m. at this point. There's lots of brandy, been drunk, all kinds of stuff's going on that I haven't mentioned, but she's easier to crack now, this old woman, than she was before. And that perspective crystallizes for Maigret. The son has been protecting his mother. Moreover, her interest in his welfare has also been a mask. Her concern actually hasn't been for her son about, or stemming from some maternal protection, but instead about safeguarding the truth from being revealed. Maigret has been assured of Freddy's presence and of the Sarah being lie tellers, essentially. He's compiled enough intelligence and he's consumed enough brandy to act brazenly. He's made confident by snippets of fact about this deceased father, Alain, pistols in the family home, Maria's plan to return home with her finances, some deep-set family insecurities, this history of mysterious heart trouble, a pathology of secrets, and of course, this mysterious smell. We come back to this mysterious smell in the house. Maigret just delivers a final barrage, complete with accusation of murder. And when he confronts Madame Cyr the final time, he confiscates her clutch bag and discovers that she's got 2 concealed pills in there. So Mother's plan was to have a chat with her son and to poison him to keep him from talking. And if they pin this murder on her, then they can also link her to the loss of the previous daughter-in-laws and the husband too. So what Simenon essentially gives us here is the story of a proud but ultimately manic matriarch who's desperately trying to uphold these outmoded, parasitic impressions of respectability. Her husband was a powerful guy. He turned into a sick creep who threatened to lose the family's money and its name, so he needed dealt with. Her son's first wife brought wealth but no joy, so she could be disposed of on account of her heart. She then convinced her son of the advantage to get rid of the second daughter. It didn't quite work as she had planned. She was also wealthy, but had started to kind of outmaneuver her, so she got disposed of. And it's interesting, 9 years before Hitchcock would bring us and frighten the world with his adaptation of Robert Bloch's Psycho, we've got Simenon delivering us this autonomous Mrs. Bates in Madame Cyr, who, anxious and a jealous mom. She's terrified of being left alone with her only child and left alone penniless. She lived then to safeguard her family's shame and finance from whoever and whatever came to threaten it. And in the end, she avoids execution on account of her age and just heads off to jail, where I like the way it's written too, like how she's going to fix the problems of the women's prison. I thought that was
the mother superior of the prison. Yeah.
We don't know much more about her trial, whether it was just for one or for the 3 killings that she got done, but does it really matter? Her son, Guillaume, meanwhile, gets 2 years for accessory to crime, and he returns to his old home and life, sneaking red wine from the same bar across the road in a really nervous, mindful way, thinking of Mum's powerful influence over him and the property at 43 Rue de la Ferme.
Norman Bates in the making.
What happens to Sad Freddy and Lofty? What about them? Well, we don't know what happens to them exactly, only that they have earned the respect of both the reader and of the chief inspector. And that is Maigret and the Burglar's Wife. Done.
Wonderful. That was beautiful, Scott.
Right, guys, thanks. And I hope if you're not familiar with the story and if you actually endured all of that, you now know what we're going to at least talk about and use to do our pipes. But listen, you've heard a lot from us, Nick, me and Josh. You want to jump in here and say a bit?
Well, first off, yeah, man, you give the best summaries. Those very
thanks, mate.
Very colorful. You just you write them so well. I really enjoy listening to them. And I got to say that it was very hard not to just jump in. I'm like so excited to talk about it. And as soon as you got to parts, I was like, no, keep it cool, man.
You did well. Good work.
Eugenie.
I know, just every part. And it was so cool to hear you go through the summary and hear how the points all connected. So nice, dude.
I know, it's tight. It's really tight.
Nice. It was really well done. Like, the hardest part of doing a summary for a mystery novel, in my opinion, is making sure that you get the basics of the story, but part of the basics of the story, particularly of the mystery, is how the clues line up. I've done many summaries, the best that I could, and I just feel sometimes that I'm not giving the clues their narrative impact. You did it perfectly, Scott. Like,
oh, thanks,
that was awesome.
Yeah, well, Simenon, I think if you just pull those strings out, you can, like Nick says, you can see how tightly they're all connected. You know, he structures his books, his stories, which just feel like, you know, just digestible mysteries. He structures them. And of course, he's not alone in that. There's thousands of great writers that do the same, but he does something really tight with his. And I do find that working through the summary takes a lot of time, but it also gives me that appreciation for just what a great structuralist he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can go back and look for those things and find them. Like if you don't have to put a lot of effort, like going through this, you know, like for example, like Dixon Carr, like when was that clue? When was that clue?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, chapter 6,
Yeah.
chapter 7. Like he breaks things down so well. And remember, as he learned from what's her name? Cosette, I think her name was. I think I got her name mixed up. The one who did Gigi, because that's who taught him how to write as a writer. He used this very limited vocabulary, like only a certain amount of words, like a couple hundred words, and he didn't go beyond those. And that's what he kept doing his entire career with his writing. I'm sure he might have done more than that, obviously, because I don't know how his non-Maigret novels are. I heard they're celebrated, but
yes, absolutely, yeah.
I don't know, like if he used that same tact with these other books.
Yeah, it's so clean, it's so tight. And there's like no fat at all. Like, and everything matters. Like, it's so cool when you're reading this because you know that it matters. Whether it's like a divergent path, you know, but even the divergent path isn't a waste of time.
Yeah. Maigret to me is like Simenon's Maigret books to me are like you're in the line of fire of like a Tommy gun. It's like rap, tap, 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 tap. And you're happy to like absorb all the bullets. You know what I mean? Like going down like Sonny Corleone. You know what I
mean? All right. Pipes time.
All right. So yeah, we're going to do this in your stylings with the acronym of pipes. And the first P is principal, the principal character.
Sure is.
Our man, Jules Maigret, Chief Inspector, Paris Police Department. Did you want to? You guys always invite me to go first, and it's a lot of pressure.
Well, listen, dude. Like, it's A, your show, right? B, Josh has done his bit. Listeners or viewers have just taken. They had to endure me for like 30 minutes there on that bit. Yeah. So I think they want to hear from you, buddy. Like it's
okay.
They need a dose of Nick.
They need a dose of Nick. Give them a dose of Nick.
Yeah. All right, we'll go. If you've watched the channel at all for the past 2 years, I've mentioned Maigret many times, and this is actually the 10th Maigret book that I've ever read.
Yeah. It's our fourth, so we're still really newbies in this too. And I would say just at the outset, not stepping on your toes, that although Josh and I did the Headless Corpse on our own steam, it was really, I think, you reaching out and saying, this Maigret stuff, like let's try to do something together, and we did. That's really set us on this trajectory now, where every year we want to scratch one of these off, for sure. So we thank you for that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't think we'll make it by the end of my life, but
hey, man, you got a lot of years left. Come on.
He had a lot of.
Start doubling up.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We're gonna have
to. I'm hoping to at least like he had more mistresses than books, so I think we can catch up.
All right. So my experience with Maigret puts this Maigret like this is top tier, man. This is his personality. It's to a T. He's very reserved. He's very attentive. He's never judgmental. He's always patient. He's always listening and thinking. And he's very driven. He's determined. He will not be deterred. They're not going to shake him. Just like you said in the summary, when she tries to change the subject, he doesn't even give them one.
No, he's ruthless.
One little crumb. And it's really funny, and this is, we'll talk about it in the investigation about his determination, but he's determined even when there isn't a crime. Like there's no body, there's no nothing going on here. He's, it's probably what he's doing isn't even allowed to be done by the police department. He's got no complaints, no, a witness is secondhand. So his determination in this is very eccentric.
Yes. Instinctual.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because he knows how to read people, and that's like the
Absolutely.
best part about Maigret is when he's very psychoanalyzing people as they talk, and he really understands them. Whether he's talking to the waitress or the waiter, he knows how to talk to that person, or whether he's talking to his underlings, the detectives, and each way he talks to those people is different. It's very precise.
And he is on his feet a lot in this one too. Remember, guys, when we did Maigret and the Ghost, he didn't really leave. He's on the phone a lot in that one. He's doing stuff on the phone, but we see him on the move here a little bit more. He was on the move a lot in the Yellow Dog and on the Headless Corpse. This is a bit more like the Headless Corpse, isn't it? In the sense that he goes to a place frequently, but he doesn't really travel around too much. But he is good on his feet. He does it all, doesn't he? He does it all.
Yeah,
we're seeing sort of like an irregular day in the life of Maigret in this one, kind of similar to the Headless Corpse in that fashion. Whereas like Yellow Dog was like this side quest, that he ends up getting.
It was definitely a side quest. Yeah, he didn't even want to be there.
No.
Yeah, I did though. I liked that one. I wanted to.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Yellow Dog was cool. You kind of talked me into liking that more than I did.
Yeah. Good. That's one good thing I've done for the world.
I enjoyed it, as I said, but I just didn't feel like I had the Maigret vibe that I was familiar with, like from what I saw from like the Michael Gambon TV episodes, and then what I've known from like and what I've read in the Headless Corpse. It just painted a more clearer picture of Maigret for me than say the sort of off adventure that we had. That felt almost like a Hardy Boys mystery or something, like on like the east, was it on the west coast of France, right, in Brittany. So yeah,
that's one thing that needs to be stated, is that this is very police procedural, and that's what makes Maigret different than some of the other famous detectives who are independents. What was the name of the John Dixon Carr character? I'm blanking on it now.
Gideon Fell?
Yeah, Gideon Fell. He has nothing to do with the law.
No.
He's a dude with a stick.
Yeah,
he's more
like
than
Holmes.
that. I'm sure he's more than that. But...
He's like Holmes. He was a consulting detective. I keep wondering too, like, would Holmes consider Maigret, if he was in that universe, like, would he consider Maigret like a Lestrade, like just someone who's kind of like, okay, Maigret, those are your theories. Okay, very good. You figured it out. Good for you. I feel like that would be Holmes at the end of this case. Whereas Holmes would have had it solved like in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? Like one look at the mother, Holmes is like, I'll let you come to your conclusions and then I'll embarrass you later.
Yeah. Show up at 10 o'clock tomorrow at my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. No, like I said, I haven't read Sherlock Holmes. I tried reading Sherlock Holmes when I was like 19. And one of the things that I did not like about it was that I like in Maigret, I like seeing the points happen. I like seeing the steps. I like figuring it out, and I felt like it, and I'm remembering it like 30 years later here. So
yes,
it might not be like this. And I was just a stupid kid, but that's one thing that frustrated me about Holmes, is I want to be able to solve the mystery as
I get you.
I'm reading.
Yeah. Well, lucky for you, our entire first season is available for you to go back to those garage tapes and listen to some of that rubbish that we came out with over that. Man,
the Angry Scott. I love the Angry Scott.
He shows up. He shows up a few times.
It's funny how much I love the Naval Treaty now, and then listening to that episode when we redid it was how much I was just not connecting to it, and I don't know why that was. For some reason, I think maybe just I become, as a reader, I think maybe I've become a better reader since then. Whereas I appreciate the construction of the story and the simplicity of how it was done. And I just remember how I think, man, you hated that story, Scott. You hated it. It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Poor Phelps, man. Yeah, but back to Maigret though. Back to 19.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. We jumped on your.
Oh yeah, no.
We sure did.
And I want to comment on that too, man. We would just be a 4-hour episode, dude. We talk about all this stuff because, like, I know exactly what you're saying, Josh. Because there's been books that I've read and that I've made the videos about or whatever we talked about with my other groups, and I'll be like, I didn't like that, and then time passes, and I'm like, I remember it fondly, like the Brother Cadfael, to bring that back. And like everyone in the episode, well, not everyone, some people enjoyed it more, but it was like really a disappointment. But when I think about it, I'm like, you know what? There was something about that was I actually enjoyed. Like I want to go read more Brother Cadfael's, but at the time I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
But when you think back on it, you're like, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was something about the atmosphere. Maybe I don't know. But as time passes, like sometimes shit just soaks in and just I don't know.
It does. Better. I always loved Scott's comment upon Cadfael. He said something along the lines of cottagecore mystery. I think it was something like that, or crofters mystery.
Crofters. That sounds like something I might say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, back to Maigret. I think this sums up his persona pretty well. Is when he has to contact the Sergeant Bossier, who works in the crime department, the robbery department,
armed robbery kind of guy. Yeah,
and he really likes him as a man, and he thinks he does a great job. And he even like dismisses his boss. He's like, his boss sucks, but it's like this, like you said, this poor guy, he can't pass this test. He can't be the investigator. They're discussing Sad Freddy, and Bossier is telling him about Sad Freddy. And he feels bad for him because he's very talented, but the guy just can't catch a break.
Yeah, he can't get a break. I know.
Yeah.
And in Maigret's head, he's like, "Oh, this is just like Bossier." He's connecting those two together, and why there's that respect.
That's right. It's cool, isn't it?
First taste of of the psychoanalyzing that Maigret does, and he's always doing it. It's not just about the mystery of what's going on, but it's every character. I love it, and I love how it really humanizes the people. They feel very real.
That's a good pickup, man. I didn't actually think of that one myself, but that's an awesome find that he does, because that's when he makes the comment about failing his inspector's exam, right? Or maybe he didn't do it because of his handwriting or something. But
he had really bad handwriting. Apparently, that's what I heard. Yeah, but he also knows that too. Like how he's able to read people. Like one thing in terms of Simenon's writing, particularly with Maigret, is that knowledge of human psychology that Simenon has, that he's able to apply to his character. And that really shows when we see Maigret interacting with anybody. He's able to figure out what he perceives anyways is correct about them and goes with it and follows that that instinct, right? And follows it. And like immediately as soon as Madame Serre, like he doesn't turn into like, oh, well, this person is my better because she was a former aristocrat type. So therefore she's talking to me now. So I'll be dissuaded from my perspective from her because she's a nice old lady or a someone that, I should be, respectful of. Maigret is just once she starts talking, Maigret is like, yeah, no, I'm not going to let you change the topic here. I'm going to just, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And then he follows that away and then he never forgets it. Right. So he's able to do that so well. And I think that's because Simenon just knows people. And, we talked about, in the introduction to Simenon, how he lived, in a house with people, with his parents, boarded people, from all different countries during World War I. And they lived in the house with him when he was a young man. And, and he was out being a juvenile delinquent and, stealing pies and breaking windows and probably lots of other stuff too. So he just knows. Right off the windowsill, like Pepe Le Pew. I don't know, Sylvester. I'm trying to think of a cartoon example, but yeah.
No, your point's good.
Yeah. And then the parts with, I really enjoyed the parts where Lofty comes in and they have that history, and it also sets up just how non-judgmental he is. Like even this ex-prostitute that gave him all that grief, and he almost like remembers it fondly, like, and there's that connection that they share, and he reads her, like she comes in with the story and he hears it and he decides that, I think she is telling the truth.
Yeah. I was wondering too, because we're talking about Lofty in particular. Do you think that he becomes, because I want to point out that, yeah, like Maigret knows what he's doing. He's driven, but he's also in this particular story obsessive, or you can see the obsessive tendencies that he had that made him a good investigator. Now, as a chief inspector, where he's delegating things and running people, other people, Simenon points it out, how they're noticing how obsessive he is when he comes to the investigation, because it gets to the point where the investigation is going to, like, well, they're searching the house, they found nothing, we're putting these rich people out of sorts right now, like this looks really bad politically in a public view for the department. And there's a strain happening amongst his own people, like Janvier and others, when it comes to how much Maigret is pushing it. And so going back to Ernestine, to Lofty, do you think subconsciously he's trying to kind of redeem himself for possibly putting her away when he shouldn't have? Because there's that ambiguity whether or not, did her friend Lulu steal that purse, or, from that cattle rancher guy, or was it she herself, and she's just, keeping that on, that I didn't do anything wrong and that's just the way she is? Or was she actually innocent and he arrested her because she had it on her pocket bed? On her, on top of her dresser, or whatever it was. Like, do you think that one of the main reasons why he's pushing so hard against the Sayers is because he wants to prove that, he wants to make it up to Lofty for sending her to jail for a year or so? I think that could be one of his motivations, anyways, besides being obsessive and also not liking Madame Sayre and wanting to do her justice too. I mean, there's a great line on page 142 of chapter 7 where, Guillaume de Sayre is basically stating, why are you putting this through us? This is cruel and torturous, and talking about how, like, all my mother wants to do is just live a life as an old woman, or something along those lines. And then he says, Maria would have liked to become an old woman too. So you also get that sense of justice from Maigret as well, which I really like. I just liked all the facets of Maigret that we got in this story. It seemed very consistent to the Maigret that I encountered in The Ghost, and also in The Headless Corpse, which I found I got less of in in The Yellow Dog. So I find so far in the 50s written stories, at least, Maigret is very consistent as a character. And to me, in this particular one, I was really interested and driven as a reader. The investigation was interesting. I wanted to solve it like you did, but I was also just enjoying Maigret as a character in this. Like, I was just rooting for him. I like the fact that he had a big obstacle he had to surmount. He had to, push himself to get past it. He had to go to the finish line. And I really love that about his character in this. Trying to redeem himself, just the obsessive nature and those inner frustrations inside him, and that's being filtered through, like, his alcohol consumption. Because in the yellow Dog, he was less patient. He was prone to anger. He just blows up at that one girl, if you remember. But in this one here, you get that internal dialogue of his doubts and frustrations, and then so he's able to hold that down. And despite his actions, when they're shown as impulsive and obsessive, we understand why he's doing it. And I just think it works so well in this story.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it is vague about Lofty being guilty or not guilty. I think she was guilty. I think she's kind of a scammer, She's quick. She's a person of the street. And I think that, as you pointed out, the baddies, the Sayers, rich people. And in every Maigret story, he's not a fan, but he really connects with more of the everyday people, and even the criminal element. Like, I think that he still sees them as people, and so he'll have more respect. He'll give Lofty more of a chance than he would as the Madame Sayre, the mom. Like, he sees that, he sees her right away. He sees the well-to-do, the person that's a bitch to the servant woman. He sees that as soon as he meets her. So when she starts talking, like, nah, but Lofty, I want to hear what she has to say. This is someone who struggles and fights every day for her life. So
yeah, it could be too that she might have, it's very possible that she did steal it and she was scamming, and then she was just kind of maybe trying to use a little guilt against Maigret to help her with Sad Freddy. Like, I did my time. I'm going to make you feel bad that I did it for no reason, and all I want is for you to get Sad Freddy out of this mess, and that's kind of what her plan was. Or maybe she was innocent. We don't really know for sure, but we know that whatever emotions Maigret was feeling, whatever thoughts that he had, he did pursue the investigation.
Yeah. I thought, and that is cool too, because she is kind of a con artist. So it also sets us up for, is she telling the truth? How much of this story is true? You know? Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, did anyone feel in that moment where where he's talking to Maître Oren, the old lawyer, when they showed the picture of the girl, doing the headstand? For some reason, I don't know why, for that 1 second, I thought maybe that was a picture of drawing of Lofty for some reason. And maybe there was some connection to like Lofty and the old Monsieur Serre, that maybe Lofty was trying to screw them over somehow. I don't know. It was just a weird one moment thing that I had that automatically went back to my previous theory very soon afterwards, because it was just so kind of like those kind of twists that you would see in kind of writing nowadays, that I was just kind of wondering about.
I'm really glad he didn't do that. I'm glad that wasn't a plant, because that would have been serendipity. Like the fact that Sad Freddy did what he did in the house of these people and saw the murder, that's enough serendipity to get you going. You don't then need that to be a plant because he used to be a prostitute. Maybe Maître Oran did, or Alain Serre did sleep with Lofty. That's like, I'm glad that's not in this story, because that would have just been a bit too much for me.
Although Lofty as Alain Serre's like illegitimate daughter would be hilarious, just for how much it would piss Madame Serre off. Imagine her dropping that bomb in the conversation they were having at the end in the police station.
Yeah, I think that's like episode 6 of a short series, isn't it? Like what you're producing 100%.
Here. It gets very soap opera. You want your Maigret more soap opera, Josh? Is that what you're saying?
Not really, no. But when I read a mystery novel, I try to take all different angles to see, like, could this author jump the? I've never seen Simenon so far, in my opinion, jump the shark in terms of how investigations go. So, but for some reason, I just had that moment, like, why are they showing that woman? But then Scott crystallized it perfectly. It's because of what Madame Serre would think of it, and how embarrassed she was by her husband and the life that he led and whatnot, and how she went to extremes to keep keep things the way she wanted.
Yeah. What about you, Scott? How did Maigret measure up for you in this one?
For me, in this one, Maigret was as near perfect as I think I've seen him. I don't use platitudes like that when you talk about characters. There's no such thing. But man, he is good in this for me. Like, I think what you said, Nick, is like bang on. He's very human in this. And I don't just mean he's human because he's like surly at times and he's drinking a lot and he's like showing that off, and he's like hot, but he's dealing with a heat wave as well, which is environmental, but he's communicative. He's trusting in regular folk. He's not what he's chasing, which is a very stuffy person. He is he's distrustful and trustful depending on the situation. He's very resourceful, particularly as the day stretches on, the last day stretches on into the early morning. He's getting hot, he's getting flustered. Like, we see him with his wife, we see him with people he respects, we see him with people he doesn't respect. We see that calculating, effective investigator at work. Like, I feel like we have spoken a lot about Maigret as well. I've got a lot of notes written. I'm not going to read them at all because I think it would just be adding on to what's already been said in different ways, and there's no need to do that. But like, there's like a joie de vivre about his life here in this one. Like, he's even taken time to enjoy, not literally to smell the flowers, but like to be aware of being in Paris with his wife. Like, we just get so many different facets of him on show here. I really like the way he dealt with the kid at the hardware store. Like, that was cool. I just thought he was very personable and effective in this story. And I think, knowing how I score my characters, to go anything less than a 5 would be dishonest for me because of what I expect. I got everything I wanted out of Maigret in this story. I went top marks. I don't usually do that. I don't usually gush about them. I will when I feel they deserve it, because that's just This is a story where I just thought he deserved it. So I went full marks for Maigret in this one. Yes, he takes a lot of liberties, but he earns it, and he uses the people around him like Janvier and Boissy, and he also gives the holidays to the families that need the holidays. You know, he's sending so and so off. I just think he's such a well-rounded character in this story that it's the best I've seen him. Like, I don't think he's always the best here. I've seen things I liked about him, maybe in a different way in one of the other stories more, but this was the story that brought it all together for me. So I went 4 or 5. Yeah.
Same 5, yes.
5 for you too?
I was a 5 as well. Like, I loved Maigret in this story. Like, he was fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was great. Like, this to me is like, I mentioned that this was consistent with the previous 2 Maigret stories that we read that were written in the 50s. This like older chief inspector Maigret, like veteran investigator, delegating resources, running people, but knowing how to use people and being a dogged investigator at the same time, and using people respectfully, not in terms of like, you know, running them into the ground or beating up a CI or anything that Lofty explained to Madame Serre there. But yeah, he was just a full human being and a full professional in this story, and I loved it.
Okay.
I'm glad you brought up the part where he lets the guy go on vacation, because I watched both episodes of. So this was made into 2 TV episodes. Okay. So we have the Rupert Davies one, the original British black and white, and in that episode he's like barking at people, at the detectives.
Oh, wow.
And there's the part where he wants Lapointe to go run down this lead, and Lapointe is like, "Oh, but I'm supposed to go on vacation." He's like, "You better go run down the lead." I'm like, "That ain't Maigret, dude. What are you doing?
No.
What are you doing to my boy?"
Yeah. Dude, I know. And so the 92, the Michael Gambon one is so much better.
Oh yeah.
But they still don't
beat Gabon.
I mean, character wise, he's pretty good. But I mean, as far as like them interpreting the story, it was a little bit of a letdown. But
yeah. Cool. Yeah, I definitely think, like, from what I know Gabon as an actor. I just haven't seen the Maigret films. I've seen clips of them, and he looks really good in the role. I know you love the Gabon films, so I would be happy to check those out. But yeah, I love the I do like, from the Maigret ones I have seen of Gambon, it's very much like Dumbledore Maigret. You know what I mean? Like, he has that avuncular thing about him, and I think he does it well. He's just not, because he's played by an English actor, I just kind of lose a little bit of that immersion of the character. Like, I would like to see him played by like a French actor if they did another modern day version, another adaptation, because we had like Rowan Atkinson the last time that they did it, and like I just feel that a French actor would be better, like someone like Vincent Cassel or something like that. You know what I mean?
They did there was a French production of this book, and it was a made-for-TV movie.
Okay.
And I found it on YouTube, but it was in French. And I was like, well, maybe it'll still be enjoyable. And I watched like 20 minutes. I was like, I got to have this. I got to have a translation. But yeah, it's like an actual full-length movie. It's like an hour and a half of this book.
Was that Depardieu who was starring it?
I don't remember. I didn't write down who it was.
Yeah, I got out of there pretty quick.
Yeah, well, I watched the whole beginning part with Lofty in the interview, and I was like, this is awesome, but
yeah,
I mean, it's, you know, I gotta know.
I got other things I need to do in my life.
Understood.
Yeah. All right, well, that's us on investigation then. Nick, what do you make of this one?
Okay, so yeah, I thought this investigation was pretty original, and it was pretty clever to have the thief, like in the middle of the night, in the middle of robbing this house, discover a body. And you guys have read more classic mystery than I have. Is this like a trope? Is this something that's popular? I don't remember ever stumbling across anything like this before.
I think it is. It's very Sherlock Holmes in that way, where someone is like, comes to Holmes and says like, well, I was like a nanny at this particular house, and then I noticed something with the Lord, and he was doing something a bit shady, and and that's how investigation usually comes from, or the just straightforward procedural way. But Deus Ex Machina, in terms of getting the plot going, is very much a staple, I think, of mystery novels, because I think it's just the authors trying to find a way how to get the story started without just saying, Yeah, and then the police show up at the detective's house and say, "Can you help us? We need some," which is the standard Sherlock Holmes kind of fare, but
but I think the spin on it though is the fact that it's a criminal action that reveals another criminal action much worse than, and that then gives the characters depth, and it gives your investigator a lot to chew on. So we got to watch him figure out the greater of two evils and stuff, like I don't think that itself is a trope, but what Josh is saying about, like having people bring the case to someone I saw this sketchy thing going on, and I think we got to look into it. That's absolutely a trope, but no, it's certainly not what you're suggesting with the kind of one crime giving way to another crime like that. I don't think so.
Because it kind of puts it in a box, because the guy who witnessed it can't interview him. He can't talk to him because he was in the middle of doing something illegal.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah.
And he's not there either. Like he's
so it's all secondhand. So it's like you don't even know if this is true. Not to mention that who's telling Maigret, who Lofty is very unreliable.
Yep.
Like she's a con artist.
Exactly. So that's what the thing is that like Guillaume, that he may not even really realize this. He does have an advantage other than just sticking very closely to his rights and being educated on those rights, which kind of allow him to outlast Maigret for some time until the inevitable. But
so I thought it was a hell of a hook. And like I was insinuating in the beginning, this is definitely not an investigation that would happen nowadays. Like this is, I mean, I think it might be illegal, right? Like doing all this stuff. And in fact, he orders someone to do something illegal when they go break into the garage. And he's like, I don't care. He's like, search warrant or not. Go break into that garage, search that car. And the dude, you don't even have a crime yet. You don't have a body. You got this secondhand witness that is.
We assume that doesn't happen.
Yeah, we assume.
There's always the extrajudicial going on in some capacity. Like I think if there was a burglary and then we have like a homicide, if the department can get a homicide caller and then basically amnesty for a burglary because of that, for being a witness or what have you, then the burglary crime won't be as bad because it solves a bigger crime in that sense. I think they look at things politically like that when it comes to cases.
I thought that because he did that it gave it like this old world charm. Like this isn't something that happens now, but maybe, this is something that would happen. It also made it feel more like a village constable rather than the chief detective of Paris, right?
That's true. It does. It does kind of like reduce the ecosystem a little bit. It shrinks things to that level. Yeah, that's a good point.
I really like that. How you were, I mean, I know we've already said it twice, but when he's questioning people, just the rapid fire, man, it's so like, it's so quick and you can't stop and think. You're almost like who he's questioning. Like you don't know what's going on. It's so fast that it goes and goes and goes. And then you're like, what was all that about? And then you get to the end of the conversation and it's like an image made out of halftones. Like all of the little conversation are the little dots, right? And then it's over, and then you zoom out, and you're like, "Holy shit! That was a person that he was making." Like it was just, it's a freaking piece of art, dude. I love it. I love this so much.
Yeah, like in a way, I can see how some people would think that setup is coincidental or even contrived. But I think the way that the Simenon takes that situation and plays it out, he makes it believable, and he makes it have greater impact because of what the source is. Because that also creates narrative tension. Because can we trust Lofty? So again, it's just another example of taking something that you have expectations about and then turning them on their head and making something really cool out of it,
I like that this investigation had lots of police procedural stuff in here, like the robberies investigated. Like, did Freddy really break in? Like that's, that needs to be determined to be true before he can take step 2. And then there's also lots of forensic. There's lots of forensic stuff in here.
Yeah, there is. There is a lot, actually. I totally
Yeah.
glossed over that in my summary, but dust picked up from the carpets of the car and all this stuff. Like, there's a lot in. You're absolutely right. There is.
It's like,
Yeah.
it's like CSI. Like he sends the
Yeah.
crew in, and it is
Yeah.
like they really get into it. It's kind of amazing.
Exactly. I love the synergy of his crew. Like, even though they're like, what is Maigret doing with these people? But you know what? He's the boss. So we're going to do, we're going to follow our orders and, all the way to the end. And, you have Janvier, doing his usual stuff, his picking up extra facts for Maigret, the extra stuff that Maigret just is too busy to get. And then you have making phone calls, doing all that, his secretarial work as an investigator, but still helping to solve the case. And then you have, for example, Moores and what's his name? Moores, and who was the other guy? Vacher. Vacher was the guy who did the photos, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think. And then we have the unnamed translator too. Because if it's interesting, you were talking about earlier, Scott, about how like we learn about Maria von Artz through the translator, and I don't think the translator even has a name in this story, which is kind of poetic in a way because he's just the voice of Maria von Artz.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of poetic, yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
So I think that there was little doubt that the Sears killed Maria, right? Yeah. I don't think that was supposed to be even an issue. Like I feel like you kind of know, but the investigation is how and why. It's so crazy,
and how they're going to get to it. Yeah,
like because it's not something that's obvious. And as you pointed out, you're like, oh, the backgrounds. She was already rich, so why would they even do this?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really the investigation was about the motivation more so than whether they did it. I mean, even it is about how they did it and why, but I think it's mostly about the motivation and then how it unravels that she's a serial killer.
Yeah, no. Oh, I've done this before.
Yeah. When did you guys catch on to Madame Sarah? I think I clocked her. I had my suspicions about her, but it may be possibly the son in the first few chapters. But then when I heard about the first wife dying and even the husband before that, and then they're talking about the same physician, Dr. Duvillier, whatever his name is, there's something going on there, big. So I was not surprised at all that was the case, that she was the one, and Guillaume was the mama's boy essentially.
I clocked it. I clocked it early. I thought I knew right away because, like I said, that Roald Dahl story tipped me off. The Landlady. It's a really fun short story. If you could check that out. And there's that almond smell in the environment. But Maigret smells something, and we get this old woman, and there's something with a missing woman. I'm thinking, I'm just putting it together. But then when she stops him at the door, and she's like, "Look, I'm really sorry about my jerk son. I'll come back and I'll answer your questions." That's when I was like, oh no, maybe she didn't do it. But then I went back to my original thought when she put herself out the way to go see Maigret at the station. That was absolutely unnecessary. She's playing her cards too much. The lady doth protest, or in this case, volunteer too much. I was like, nah, that's not right. What's she trying to cover up? And that's when I started thinking about her more, the way she would speak for her son and all of that stuff. So I didn't get it at the beginning. I talked myself out of it at the start, and then I went back to her. And then I kind of thought maybe they were both into it, but the son didn't know as much, certainly. And anyway, so it didn't take away my fun though, right? Sorry, Josh, but as you're saying, Nick, it didn't take away my fun because even though you clock it and you know that they're behind it, you're wondering and wanting to know why and how and to what end, and you're just really insecure and worried about being penniless, and you're jealous, and you're just a bit too close to your boy. That's it, right? Ultimately, that's what it is. So that's when I twigged it. But sorry, back to you.
I
think. Go ahead, Josh.
No, I'll continue my thought in a moment. Continue.
I think the only complaint, I guess, was the way that everyone had heart problems. That was the only thing. Her husband had heart problems. The first wife had heart problems. New wife has heart problems, and the son has the heart problems.
Yeah,
he can pick
very
them.
Coincidence that she's just like, oh, cool. I figured out how to kill my husband, that's legit. You figured out the first one, that's good. But then it's like, what are the odds that the
Well,
next
30%, he says.
need to kill.
30%. You got 30% of the population with a heart problem. You got 3 wives, you're going to get lucky with one of them, right?
Yeah.
And so that's
I think he definitely had the idea of having the mother like shockingly try to kill her son towards the end of the story.
that was real. I did not see that coming. I loved that
So-
part of this story. I was like, what? Wow, that just propelled her from like a woman who was doing stuff maybe to protect her son to just absolutely like batshit.
Monstrous. Yeah.
Monstrous. It's a much better
Yeah.
label than batshit crazy. But,
Yeah.
mhm.
I also sort of like how the story, as I mentioned this earlier about, you know, how the team is like, what is Maigret doing here? And that tension, I think, that's growing between them is really good. And as he pursues the Sayers. And chapter 6 particularly makes a point about this and gives us a perspective that we normally haven't seen in a Maigret book so far. It's the perspective of other investigators on the team and how they view Maigret. So I'm just going to go to that chapter on my book here anyways. On my version, just go to chapter 6. It's the start of chapter 6.
Do you have the same translation that we do?
Possibly.
Yeah,
But we'll see
you
in a
translated yours.
moment. We'll see in a moment.
Okay. I'm just gonna blast on. Man.
J. McLaren Ross.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yeah, that's ours. Yeah, it's a good
Okay.
one.
Yeah. It was 20-4 when Maigret made up his mind. 25-4 when the questioning began. But the fateful, even dramatic moment was the moment when the decision was made. Maigret's behavior had come as a surprise to those working with him in the house on Rue de la Ferme. Ever since morning, there had been something unusual about the way in which the chief inspector was directing operations. It wasn't the first search of this kind in which they'd taken part, but the more this one proceeded, the more it took on a different nature from any other. It was difficult to define. Janvier, because he knew his chief better than the others, was the first to feel the change. When he had set them to work, there had been a slight, almost fierce flicker of glee in Maigret's eyes. He had loosed them on the house as he might have loosed a pack of hounds on a fresh scent, urging them on, not by his voice, but by his whole attitude. Had it become a personal matter between himself and Guillaume Sierre? More precisely, would events have taken the same course? Would Maigret have had the same decision at the same moment had the man on Rue de la Ferme not been heavier than he physically, and so immovable? Maigret had seemed from the start impatient to come to grips with him. So I just love that we're getting a different perspective of Maigret from other characters, and just seeing that like this investigation is very important to him. He needs to solve it. That dovetails with how well his character is written, and I think that also, and all the other things that we've mentioned, give stakes to the narrative.
Agreed.
And that's that.
Scott, what about you? You got anything to add for investigation?
Again, lots of notes here that I made. I'm not going to read them. We talked about the old woman. We talked about the character. I love how Ernestine, she has agency, and outside of Maigret just kind of being nice to her, she ends up really inadvertently breaking Madame Serre at the end and making it possible to get the revelation that's required. I like the way the MacGuffin worked. Like, we think we're chasing the story of where did Sad Freddy go, and is he going to come back and help with this case? And then he disappears as Maigret gets other little bits of information. So that drops off structurally, because structure is part of what we like to review here too. I just think this is so good, so tight, so professional. It's the type of book that you could pick up if you're like a writer, or I imagine if you're like a budding writer or a young writer and you're like, shit, man, like this is good. Like, how am I gonna get out there and do what this is doing? Because it is really tight, very enjoyable too. Like I was into it, and I went full marks. I went for a 5, and I don't think with either of them before. The investigation was so compelling. All the characters, the way they worked and interacted, the line of questioning, the evidence, how it was brought in and tied up, and the writing too. There's some beautiful phrases in this book that I don't think I've mentioned with the other Maigrets. I really like the way that this is written. I think actually you could take the first 3 chapters of this book and then the last paragraph of the book, and if you told me, oh, that's what Simenon did, he wrote the first 3 chapters and then the last paragraph, and then he worked from that. He knew what he wanted, with the mother being the ultimate baddie or the perp, and then he worked the other stuff backwards with like evidence and the forensic stuff you mentioned. Like he didn't need that to make his story. So I don't think this was a story that was written, where do I go next? It was all mapped out, and then he filled it with stuff. He backfilled it, and I just thought it was great, guys. Like I went for a 5. So this is really rare for me. Anybody listening?
Yeah,
or who knows
that's 2 5s in a row.
2 5s in a row. Like
this is unprecedented. Yeah,
probably. Anyway, I could say more, but I don't need to. We were short on time or whatever. But
your fanboying reminds me of myself, actually. So I'm very proud.
Yeah, well, there you go, buddy. 5 for me. What was your score, Nick? What was yours?
It was 5 also. Even
great.
Even with the complaint about the heart attacks.
Yeah, but
it's
the heart trouble.
Like nothing compared to how amazing the rest of it was.
Josh, your score?
I was so one thing that was kind of the one main thing that bothered me about the storyline in a way, and until you really mentioned to me, Scott, was how even though like I kind of wish there was some deadline of how they needed to like get the confession out, or they would lose the case and they couldn't bring them back in again for political reasons, just following the way the letter of the law works in that sense, which happens in a lot of American TV procedurals. And I thought that was something that would have been given impetus to the very last scenes. But if you think of the angle that we have of Lofty working on Madame Serre, and then we also have the translation. Initially, I thought the translation was just going to be inevitably giving us the case even before Maigret can solve it, because it seemed like the translation of the letters was giving us the case more so than Maigret was. That's kind of how I felt a little bit, how I was going towards it. And then like the confession would just either be inevitable, or there would just be all they had to do was break them. But I think there was a bit of extra stuff thrown in there that I think worked really well. And I liked the idea that, as I mentioned, Von Aert's voice is seen through the translation. So we get to hear the victim speak as well. And that was just something a little poetic and a little literary that I really appreciated more than I normally would in a story like this. So I was kind of at a 4.5, but I'm at a full 5 just for that sort of literary device that he used. I really like that.
Wow.
It makes it to me like stand out as a great, detective literature, detective fiction.
Well, who's going to fall first, guys? Who's going to be the one?
Yeah. So I did the perpetrators as the team here.
Okay.
Like I think it's both of them, even though it's the mom had all the intentions, but obviously it was the son who took out the wife, though not on purpose. I will say I was a little confused what happened there.
Yeah, did she shoot or did he shoot? That's my question. I don't think that was made clear. And even like the wrap up at the end, like that really brief epilogue, we don't really know for sure what happened. We know the mother, got the time, but it's hard to, yeah.
Yeah, because he could be, as Maigret says, you could be acting in self-defense here. So be quiet when you say you didn't kill your wife, because you might actually need to say you did. If I find that if you found that she was pointing a gun at you, then you might not want to say you didn't kill your wife. And I thought that was really an interesting line there too, because he is so sharp. He's thinking about what you should be telling me and what you might actually need to be telling me. So that was cool. But I think the mom did. Let's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the mom.
That was a good investigative tactic on Maigret's part. That's something that, a lot of veteran detectives, they're able to get confessions out of people by, psychology, tricking them, to unwittingly confess to something that they don't realize when they're doing it.
So one of my complaints in, I think it was Yellow Dog, was that the killer was no match for Maigret. Like it was like no. Yeah. But the ones here, they are so like solid. Like he can't break them. And which is really weird for him. And not only that, they were very cold and clever about how they covered everything up, to where they were so confident that it really was a hard case for him.
Yeah.
And
if it wasn't, even though he knew, he could see that he wasn't really getting anywhere. He was starting to get somewhere with the son, but as he was getting somewhere, he's also realizing that it's not, he doesn't think that it's so much him as it is the mom.
Yeah.
And this is something that I didn't think of until you kept bringing it up, Scott, is that having Lofty break the mom, it makes perfect sense, because Lofty is the con artist, and the mom is kind of also a con artist. So it took one to break her,
That's true. That's cool. Yeah.
So
again, it just circles back to the guy's genius, doesn't it? Like he's got this thing so tight.
Yeah, I like that the mom is a sociopath. She never regrets anything. She
no remorse at all. She's doing the world's a service by doing what she's doing.
She totally believes in what she's doing.
Puritanical, cold, manipulative, believes in what she's doing, is righteous in her own way, and she's protecting her son. There's multiple factors involved here, and I think there's also sort of a classist thing too, where she believes that she's above everybody else and she's doing what's meant to be done, and those who don't follow the way that she do that don't walk the same path as hers, then they're beneath her, and even her son. And it's a matter of propriety that she keeps things the way that she sees them fit. And I found that very interesting, and like monstrous. Like even I wasn't expecting, just before it happens, I was like, oh my God, she is trying to poison him. And it was there, and that shocked me. I'm going like, wow, like Simenon is going to the nines when it comes to this character.
Yeah.
And to have at this time a serial killer, right? I mean, now everyone knows everything about serial killers, but at the time, this is a new concept. They were not serial killers have existed obviously forever, but the study of them, I guess,
the popularity of them,
the way that, I love that she's hidden in plain sight. If they were her neighbor, they'd be like, I can't believe she killed
absolutely, man.
4 people.
And there's something it's totally true about it. And just this conversation has made me think. I don't remember the line, so I'll quote it wrong. But I remember in the Hitchcock noir, Josh since convinced me it's a noir. I'm still not sure, but Shadow of a Doubt, right? Joseph Cotton's character, after he's kind of found out by his niece, he sits down at this bar with her and he talks, pardon me, he talks about like, do you know what you'd get if you ripped the front off of houses? Like swine. Like everybody is just corrupt and immoral and hiding secrets, and that's this mom. Like she's got this outward thing, and people know her as like, oh, she's this quiet old woman, but man, like she is not. She just is not, right? That's
all I got for the madam.
Guillaume.
Go, Josh.
Guillaume, he's the sad mama's boy. He knows his rights and is up to the plate to defend them. He's intelligent in terms of his education, but he lacks the tactics of Maigret. I think he thinks he's smarter than Maigret or better than him in some way. I think that he thinks he can take him and beat this rap against his family. But his weakness is his mother, evidently. And that's kind of what brings him down but it's also his own self-sufficiency is also leads to the confession too. And what happens there. And the Mother Superior label, I love that term for her. I love the fact that Simenon has Maigret refer to like the gate of the house, the iron, that iron gate looks like, the gate of a convent across the way when they're sitting in the cafe with Bossier and Lofty, that it just looks like a convent almost, and that you get that puritanical image. And then it's funny because we just read a story about a very puritanical Mother Superior.
We did, yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that, but we did.
In Scorched Grace. Yeah. So
I did. Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty funny. Yeah. Well, I went for what did I go for here? I went for 4 here in this category because although I couldn't fault much of it, I did think that if he wanted to, he could have put a bit more effort into masking her as a villain, because all of us are saying the same thing, that we called it pretty quick. But it didn't really detract much from my enjoyment. So maybe I'm being unfair here because there were other things to look for in the story than who did it. It's the reasons why that are of interest. So I might be a bit hard there, but I liked. But then again, I did love the way she surprised me at the end with the whole "I'm here to kill my boy" with the pills. So maybe I should go up a bit, but now I'll stick to 4. So I break the ice first, I guess. I go to 4.
I break the ice next. I did 4.5.
Okay.
Only because I wanted more of these characters. I wanted a little more ambiguity about their guilt. So I just wanted to see Madame Serre. I just wanted to kind of see her be a little more human and kind of make it a bit more of a, whereas like I feel that she's a little over the top, just a little tiny bit, but I still enjoyed her as a villain. And I really missed, one thing I missed in Maigret is like a really challenging villain and an adversary for him. So on that level, I really enjoyed it. So I'll go with my 4.5.
Good.
Yeah, I think I was 4.5 also. I think the only thing that I was not into was the who killed the wife. Like that bothered me a little bit. I wanted to know. And also,
Maigret would want to know too.
Yeah. Yes. And also the reasoning behind them wanting to get rid of the wife. I thought was she's just leaving. Just let her leave.
I guess she wasn't making him happy though. She wasn't making him happy. So that's maybe all mom needed.
All right, so next up is the environments, PIPE environs. And one of my favorite aspects of the Maigret series is the weather. Simenon always writes the weather in there. It's kind of one of the characters. And this one starts off in a heat wave. Sounds like, okay, that's cool. Usually it's raining, but I'll take a sweaty Maigret walking around, puffing his shirt out, drinking cold beers.
Lots of cold beers. Yeah,
I'm surprised we haven't mentioned the beers too much.
No, we got pretty far. There's a lot of drink in this.
So yeah, it starts off with the heat wave, and then I feel like it kind of disappears a little bit. Like, and he's sitting outside in that cafe across the street from the Sears house. Like, and it's an outside cafe, but they don't really. It's not like talked about that it's this overwhelming heat.
It might be that it's like kind of like in a suburban district, Nui. So maybe because there's less like taller buildings around, like per se, like downtown where like the police judiciaire is. In Canada, one of the biggest cities in the province that I'm in is Toronto. And if you go to Toronto in the heat where it is right now, even it is like oppressive at how like the concrete traps in, you know, the heat, like in almost like in a valley sort of situation. Whereas like if you're out in the suburbs, there's less chance of heat getting trapped because of the height of the buildings, right? So that's how I interpret it, was the fact that it was, I compared Paris to Toronto, but that's funny. But it's, to me, that could be an explanation. But they also talk about like the heat coming back one or two times and how it was like cooler in the evening or something like that too. They were saying that there was like a relief to get out of the heat. Yeah. Like when Maigret is sitting there.
When I think heat wave, I think that it's like very oppressive, very hot. Not just like, oh, it's hot out here today, but like, holy shit, this sucks. Like Phoenix, Arizona, 115 degrees, you know?
Yeah. Well, he does fall asleep. He falls asleep at his desk once, legitimately, and he's dozing at least twice elsewhere in the story. So, and he's staring at wasps and stuff. So, I mean, yeah, it is oppressive heat. I think we're meant to read it that way.
For Europe, anyways.
Yeah.
Because you live in Scotland, Scott, and you were saying how like the heat, like how the country, the UK, was not prepared for some of the heat that they've been getting the past couple of summers.
No, we've had a real bad stretch of it here, but our infrastructure is very different, right? Like very few homes have forced air conditioning or air conditioning machines. So it's, if you're dealing with 30 degrees, or 33 degrees or something outside, and you're walking into your air-conditioned home, you can live that way, but nobody's got that here. And so nursing homes, big deal for the elderly and stuff like that. This is, of course, 70 years before where we're currently sitting from.
But maybe not everyone having air conditioners either, particularly like
exactly. Like it's you're blowing, and once you get to a certain, I'm not a scientist, right? So, but I would assume that once you get to a certain temperature, blowing fans in your house isn't really accomplishing much, because all you're doing is blowing that hot air around, right? Like it must be like a threshold where that's not useful. Waste of electricity, but.
I was going to go to that heat wave just to share that with you, because I think it's a great descriptor for like the environs. This is a smaller segment. I do promise. It's on basically it's the second page of the first chapter. It was a sort of day when one is apt to indulge in pointless speculation. The heat wave may have been to blame. Perhaps the vacation spirit also prevented one from taking things very seriously. The windows were wide open, and the muted roar of Paris throbbed in the room. where before Joseph came in, Maigret had been engaged in following the flight of a wasp, which was going around in circles and bumping against the ceiling invariably at the same spot. At least half of the inspectors were either at the seaside or in the country. Lucas went wearing a straw hat, which on him looked like a native grass hat or a lampshade. The big chief had left the day before the Pyrenees, where he went year after year. And then you have the when he's with Madame Maigret, when he's sitting at his apartment, and they're in their dining room, and they have the window open. In the houses opposite, also people could be seen eating, with the same white splashes showing them that the men had taken off their jackets. Some of those who had finished dinner were leaning on their elbows at the window. Radio music could be heard, as well as crying babies and raised voices. A few concierges had taken their chairs out to sit on their doorsteps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the Rear Window thing, right? Where like Jeffries gets wrapped up in the murder investigation because everybody's got their windows open. So spying isn't really spying, right?
Well, you don't have a TV. I mean, what are you going to do, right? If you don't have
that's
a TV.
True.
Yeah. So
I guess what I'm saying is that I feel like it could.
Sorry, buddy.
I feel no, because I feel like Josh just refuted me, just shut me down. So what I'm saying is that I feel like it could have affected the way that Maigret was reacting to people. Like if he was, like like he could be shorter because he's uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's all I was saying. It was like I expected the heat wave to make people more uncomfortable, and no one is ever like shifting or whatever. No one's ever I don't know.
I think I get you. I
Yeah.
think I get you. Like later in the story, it kind of is forgotten about when the story's stakes are raised a bit, and the heat wave's not as important as what it was at the beginning, where everybody is uncomfortable. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, but I think they're so tired though. There's so much fatigue at the end of this story because of the late hours.
The late hours are a big factor. And to throw you a flying buttress of support there, Nick, is that when he goes to the house with
a flying buttress. Who says shit like that?
I was thinking of Notre Dame. I saw a picture on the screen here of Notre Dame, and I guess it just kind of like
I'd like to see you try to throw a buttress, buddy.
They're called flying buttresses, man. That's all I know. Ask Quasimodo, okay? Ask Quasimodo.
Look, we understand that we're going to come out of this looking stupid, okay, Josh? We know that, but we got to have our moment.
I feel less stupid, so that's my accomplishment. Just to state, when he goes into the Dessert residence, it's cool and comfortable because of the air conditioning. So that in itself, compared to what the people and Maigret are dealing with outside, it could also kind of make him less generous with what they're telling him, what they're serving him for the in terms of defending themselves on this case. So I can think that could also have irked Maigret a little bit too. So
the other thing that I liked that I already mentioned was how the Neuilly, the suburb of Paris, it feels like a little village, and I like how small the investigation felt. And I like the sitting outside in the cafes, and I was really looking forward to seeing how they did that in the TV show, which the 90s version did a lot better, but they did it as like this big cafe. But I thought that it was very intimate. I imagine these places is very small, just a couple tables outside.
That's right. Yeah.
Alfresco.
They spill out, like the tables just kind of, there will be some inside and then they'll just spill out onto the sidewalk, and very like that. Yeah.
And the village is very, I like how I want to picture France. It's very much how I want to picture, like the house, the Sears house is large. It's a very big house. It's very traditional. Like it's described in this very, very old school way.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that the cafe, the owner, the waiter knows all the gossip. Like everyone knows. I just like that little small town. I just love that aspect about this. And then it was cool how the Sears house was closed off. Like they closed all the blinds. So when the cops come in and they're like, it was so weird to see the house with the blinds open.
That's right. Yeah, that's
and it was
true.
And it was like, it really showed how the family cut themselves off from the world. Like it was just a physical representation. And then Maigret was there opening letting the light in, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Shining light into the corner.
But that just goes to show, though, like it wasn't as forced a moment as we're talking about because it was just an environmental feature. But when you go back and you've read the book and you're reflecting on it, it was very much like, time to air your dirty laundry, right? Time for folk to get to know what this house is all about. Yeah, it's true. But I never thought of that as I was reading it, which I guess is testament to just how wrapped up you are in the story. Like some of the literary features I noticed, but I didn't pick up on that. No, that's cool though.
So that's all I had for the environment section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
you're
gonna
right,
quote
though,
it,
Nick. I
but-
think that the Sayre home is absolutely the singular location that we get. That's really well described. Like we get other decorations of other apartments and the patio and Paris itself, but the weather and that Nui property is what we come away feeling, right, from the story. I think
Yeah.
for what it's worth, I don't have much to say, Josh. I'll hand to you in a second, but I think the Yellow Dog beats this story for environmental features. At least in terms of like singular places and things you remember, like the hotel bar and the cave the guy was hanging out at, and being that rooftop scene where Maigret is looking to see where this woman's going, like the waitress, like all of that. I liked that a little bit more. But this heat wave, let me ask you this, right? If it weren't for the heat wave, would this really be that great? And I would say no, it wouldn't. Like you'd have one house that you could draw on for some environmental factor, but the rest of it, not so much. But that heat wave totally helps to decorate things. It has people outside. He meets and bumps into folk. He's talking outside. He's eating and drinking a lot of drinking. I know we haven't talked about it until now, but there's a lot of drinking. The smell of pork chops is you're noticing stuff more that's being frizzled and grizzled and grilled outside into the sidewalks. Like there's lots more happening. So that heat wave is responsible for my high mark. But the interiors are pretty sparse apart from that house. I went for a 4 overall.
Yeah, I was at a 4 too. Like I think it's sort of like, you can tell Simenon knows Paris, and really, if you're a Parisian or just if you know Paris yourself, you can lock right into this story, I think. But to the unenlightened, or those of us who love a little travelogue in their writing, a little poetic description, what we kind of get is a blurry watercolor of Paris here outside of the heat wave. Like we get a general feeling that Paris is a maze of new and old streets and cobblestones and old institutional buildings with a cafe or brassiere in the lobby or basement of every building. We get the extra element of the heat wave, as Scott says, which creates atmosphere, it raises the tension. But other than that, it's standard Simenon here, in my opinion, with some obviously good notes. For example, like the Sayre household with its old wealth being described, holding on despite falling into decline thanks to the dalliances of the father and whatnot. But overall, it's the same Maigret that we've always experienced. And I agree that the atmosphere of the Yellow Dog was probably superior. But I just think it's just one of those elements that dovetail with all the other ones that just made this impactful. And it was the heat wave, yes, but I just think there was just a stronger sense of writing in the story, where the writing, the sentences that he's writing about in his description are swift and to the point, but they also are impactful poetically in the least degree anyways. So I go with my blurry watercolor kind of description that he gives us, where it's a vague sense of Paris, like a surreal kind of like what we perceive as Paris, and to what he's giving us, and it's kind of like swirling around, but not quite tactile. So that's kind of how I feel about his writing of overall when it comes to description. So, but this was a little bit better. So 4.5 out of 5 for me.
Okay.
Sorry, 4 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, you can put me down for a 4 also.
Okay.
But I'd also just like to point out that this story is fast. This is very rapid fire. And something that we didn't mention before is it's only 150 pages.
Yeah, we didn't mention that.
Yes.
Actually, what version are you looking at, Nick? Have you got we all just hold up our copies here for folk to enjoy?
So I have the first. I think it's the first. What is it, Dell? Yeah, I have the first Dell paperback.
I think that was
155.
Yeah, that was the English translation. Was in 55, 56,
Cool.
something like that.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, no, it's from 57. The first
Okay.
Dell edition from 57.
And we've all got the same translation though, because it is a good translation. Like, it's really good.
So yeah, it is really short. So he
Mhm.
definitely had to trim something. So I guess it was
Mhm.
the environs.
Yeah, maybe. But come on, 4s all around. That's not bad, is it?
No.
Not at all.
Secondary characters?
Yeah. So let's think of all the characters we got in this story, guys. We got
A lot.
Ernestine, Lofty. Yeah, Ernestine, Lofty, Juziam. We got Sad Freddy, who we don't really see, but he still has his presence in the story.
Oh, he sure does. Yeah.
Yeah. And just like the side characters that pop up in and now and then and just bring everything to life, like Bozier. Like, do we need to? Can we have had Boziers? Could we not have had Boziers in the narrative and it would still be effective? Sure. We could have just heard. It could have been hearsay or just Maigret remembering or something along those lines. But that gives an extra depth of realism. I like the fact that they give Bozier some character. He's a professional. He looks up to Maigret, obviously, because he knows that Maigret appreciates strong workers, even though they can't make captain or head detective or whatever it was, chief inspector, because of his handwriting and whatnot. He's still a reliable officer, and we get just a dose of him. And I could have had that character for the rest of the book, and I wouldn't have complained. He was interesting. Then we have, of course,
plus Josh, who would Maigret drink his Pernod with? If it weren't, actually, he'd probably drink it on his own.
Forget he'd find someone. Yeah,
did he not? Did he not have drinks with like his cab driver near the end of the book?
Did, yeah. He drinks with everybody in this, man.
Oh man, I love it.
Yeah,
I think in terms of supporting characters, though, and I think we can all agree, the best supporting character of this novel, maybe outside of Lofty and Boissier, I would say, would be Eugenie, the maid. The char woman, hates cops, and the stairs. She's a bitch. Right up front. That was just so perfect how it was delivered on the page. Like Maigret was not, Simenon was not going to kind of like have flowery language describe this, just to show her contempt for this character. Like, we got a working class, so blunt. And
I laughed. I honestly, I did. I laughed when I read that. I was like, whoa, okay, this is nice.
Yeah.
I love how she hates everyone. She hates, like you said, she hates the cops, the people she works for. Just in general, just a bitter person. And then once she realizes that she thinks that Maigret is going after the Sierra, she's like, "Are you going to put them in jail?" Like, it's the first time she smiled.
Her employers in 1951. She's like in the lower working class strata, and she's happy to lose her job to a rich family. You know what I mean? Like, that's how bad the Stairs are.
Oh, she was so funny.
She was really funny, and it came at a good time too. Just when the story is getting, it's never convoluted, but heavy. It's getting heavy, and that levity comes at a good time. Yeah, I really like that character too. I don't know if she was my favorite of the secondary characters, but I certainly agree with what you're saying. There's a fabulous cast in here. I really liked, and I was surprised because I wasn't sure that the mechanism would work in such a short story like Nick is saying, or a short novel. But I really liked how the translator brought through the letters the voice of the missing wife to life. She, I think, probably is the one who stands out as being the most interesting because we don't know of her outside of these letters. And so we're projecting as we learn about her, what we think her life was like inside that house with the mom or the mother-in-law and all of that, why did she marry William in the first place? Were they both lonely? What was her health like? Like, all of that stuff that comes out of the missing wife. I thought she was great. I'm not going to step on anybody's toes, but equally, I'm not going to say anything else about this category. I'm just going to tell you that I went for a 5 with this because everybody I thought was just so switched on, and like from Ernestine and the way they're used too, guys, like the way that they were used was so impressive to me. There's no, to use your word, Nick, from earlier, it's lean. Like, there's no fat in this story that doesn't need to be there. You're in the hands of an expert storyteller and a really, really engaging cast of characters. So how could I go less than that? I just don't think it, for me personally, there was nothing that didn't strike gold here in the supporting characters.
100%. Yeah. We didn't you didn't really touch on Lofty too much, so I just want to just talk about her for a second.
Yeah, go for it, man.
She is like top tier supporting character. I love that she is this after prime prostitute, right? Just like, but she's like okay with who she is in her life. She's just, I mean, she might as well, work at the market. Like in her mind, there's no difference.
Yeah. And
to have her have this background with Maigret that was so like Maigret, he goes up against so many people, and so many people try to shake his tree, right? Never a leaf falls.
No.
And this is like the one woman who got him. It's like he's so like you unflappable, man. You cannot mess with him. And this is the one situation where somebody just knocked an apple off his tree where she's just naked. He's uncomfortable. Like, like, what do I do here?
Yeah.
And I just that having their relationship together, that history, and having to work with her, and then her just like randomly popping back in. All of a sudden, she's in Nori. Look, there she is, just walking down the street with her hat on.
Yeah.
Like, so what's going on?
And it's
like,
awesome.
Like he had this like
so
little
good
sidekick.
Yeah. Sorry, Josh. Go ahead, pal.
Oh, I was just going to say, she's like that unconventional sidekick, that we see like in a lot of detective fiction, or in the greater ones, where they're great, like even like the film noirs, for example. Like I could see characters like, for example, like Thelma Ritter, from Rear Window. She was, and I've seen her in other roles where she plays a similar sort of like older woman from like a fallen woman, so to speak, who is helping out the detective. Or even like recently, I watched The Big Heat by Fritz Lang, and Gloria Graham's character is kind of a lofty type, like the prostitute character, the fallen woman, helping out the detective no matter what. Just, what? I like being a good guy. This is fun. This is cool. I'm enjoying this, like in a way, it's kind of her own sort of redemption from maybe if she did steal the wallet, maybe her just helping along is her own way of getting involved and redeeming herself for that past, and I thought that's just really cool.
Yeah, he's never annoyed by her, and then she like ends up helping at the end, and he's like,
"That's right.
I hereby deputize you." That information.
That would have been perfect. Yeah, exactly.
It actually gets me thinking though of maybe some of the better of the Sherlock Holmes stories. I don't think they're all this way inclined, but there are some at the beginning where Watson's narrating and he's talking about this great case that is still under lock and key, like we're not allowed to talk about it yet, but he references little things in it, like the fact that we get this flashback to her being arrested in that farcical scene. It could become its own story, right? And you get some of that in the good Sherlock Holmes stories, where you hear about something Holmes did previously. We don't ever really get a full picture of it, but we get enough to know that this particular incident or this particular figure in the story has now gained greater importance in the reader's eyes because we've been told a little something that happened somewhere else. And I love that part of her character, but then, as you say, her functioning as an important asset in the narrative too at the end is really good. It's just she's just so cool, Lofty. She is so cool.
Yeah.
And then she's married to Sad Freddy, and then just the description of him, like this like depressed burglar, and I'm like, shit, I think I want just the story of those two characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, how would they even get together? Because she's so boisterous, And I could just see like her being like this excited person, and him just being like off to the side. I think it would be a great. Oh, did I freeze there?
No,
I just think it would be no. I just think the two together would be an interesting character.
Cool.
So yeah, put me down for 5 also.
All right, so the scores are in and our pipes are in, and it will probably surprise nobody to learn that we're all very close. I'm at a 23 out of 25. I don't remember the last time I rated a story on the show.
Did I give my score?
Yeah. You said you were full marks.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought for some reason I thought I didn't mention the number, but I guess it's full marks is the same thing. So
okay.
Never mind. It's all good.
So Josh, you're at a 24. I'm at a 23, and Nick, you're at a 23 and a half. So
We
we
like
saw
this
this
one.
book. We saw this book the same. We saw this book the same. Really cool.
Yeah, amazing. Did you guys know we didn't talk about the original title? It's
Maigret and the Tall Woman, isn't it?
yeah. Well, I'm gonna try and say it.
Okay.
I'm gonna
All right.
butcher it. Maigret et la grande perche, which I saw I looked it up, the translation. I checked it a couple times, and it means the big pole.
Oh, the big
So it's
pole.
like this derogatory like description of Lofty
Uh-huh.
of how she's the skinny lady.
Is that-
She's the big pole.
I wonder if that's sort of like the American in that time period. Was it a tall drink of water? Maybe it was kind of something similar to that, like in French.
All right, maybe.
Idiom
Or
something.
given that she tells a story of like that guy who she ended up stealing from, or she had the possession of his pocketbook, didn't he like call her like he didn't want a thin one or something? He says something really nasty to her,
Oh,
and he
yeah.
sends her off the way like you're too tall and thin.
Right.
That's why he goes for her friend instead.
Yeah, just you're right. Yes, she's the big
yeah,
pole. Yeah,
The big
Good point.
pole, that could be it. Yeah. Oh well. Hey, it's just a great story. Like I don't know, man. Like this is our fourth Maigret, third one doing with you, and I enjoyed this one immensely. It was really, really good, well written, great characters. I think there's something in this book for everybody who likes a good mystery. You know, like now as a Gothic guy, Nick, which I'm not, and Josh not either. Did you pick up on any like deliberate or perhaps accidental like vibe about the house? Was that giving you anything? And the old woman, like, isn't that a thing?
Yeah, not not really.
It's not on the seaside.
Yeah, it'd be
The
different.
one
If,
running
like,
away from a house.
if there was, if it was from the perspective of Maria and she was still
Okay.
alive, because that's the thing
Okay.
about the Gothics is it's
Yeah.
about the murder victim
Uh-huh.
stopping their own murder.
Okay.
It's
Right.
essentially it is a mystery, but
Uh-huh.
it's just a step behind. So if it was
Okay.
from her perspective, it would be she either inherited the house
Yeah.
or they hired her to
Okay.
be the nanny.
Right.
And then she would be put into that creepy old house.
Mhm.
And then it would become more like a Gothic to
Okay.
where they're trying to kill her.
So her letters at the end and her being resurrected that way, that didn't create enough of a vibe, or it wasn't good enough because it didn't actually have that generic trope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
I think. Yeah.
All right, cool. Still though, I could talk about this book happily for more. And like I said, there was so many notes I glossed over, but I think we're coming to the same conclusion that this is a tight, excellent Maigret story. And given how many we could pick from, like I picked this one up because I found the book. Like truthfully, like this book was there and it was in good nick, and I'm like, I'm gonna get that one. It's a nice old Penguin edition, and I knew that you guys would join me just for reading it. You didn't care if the book was good or not, but this has just turned out to be a real win for us.
Yeah.
You know, it's really cool, and thank you for having us on, by the way, and inviting us back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This has been my
great.
favorite. I think I'm gonna put this at number 1 on the.
Oh wow, that's a big
Maigret.
deal for you. That's a big deal for you. If we were to rate or rank the 4 that we've done, Josh and Nick, you've read The Headless Corpse, so you can play in this as well.
No, I haven't read The Headless Corpse.
Oh, you haven't done The Headless Corpse. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you had done that one. Okay. Well, thinking of the 3 that we've read, if we agree that this is probably at the top of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
What comes next for you guys? The Ghost and the Yellow Dog.
Yeah, the Ghost. And then the Yellow Dog.
Josh?
Yeah. I think just in terms of the atmospheric writing, I would put the Yellow Dog second, and then the third book underneath that one, I think, because I think I like the Headless Corpse a little more than the Ghost one personally.
Okay, cool. Right.
As a crime, but I thought the same thing, but like we're talking about like a mystery, right? So the mystery I think just stands out more in the apparition, like that whole conversation at the wealthy guy's house.
That was the set piece. That was the set piece.
Absolutely the set piece, the hidden room and all of that.
Yeah. And then I'm thinking about the Yellow Dog, and I'm like, I barely remember even what it was. Someone almost got killed, and that was the investigation, right?
No, the guy got killed. He did get killed. The old man got killed at the beginning in the foyer of the room, or of that a building opposite the hotel bar.
One guy was shot, and then he was dead.
Oh, okay, right.
But then there was
He
another
wasn't dead?
murder.
Are you-
There was
oh,
another
you're right.
there was another
You're
murder
absolutely
after
right.
that, and then
Right.
another one on
Okay.
top of that as well. There was a
Mhm.
whole sort of like cover up sort of situation going on as
Yes.
well, connected to
I
that.
apologize, boys. You're absolutely
Yeah.
correct. You're absolutely
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
It was very much in vain of
That's
a
what I'm
Sherlock
saying, though.
Holmes Poirot like kind of story.
Mm-hmm.
Like it felt like a whodunit more so. I just found that like outside of the set piece of the conversation with Maigret with the perps in The Ghost, I just found that like the third act in particular, like the climax of the story, was very sort of like, who are all these characters? Why do I care about all these people? I really don't. And like maybe make me care about the guy who was being trafficked a little bit more, you know, and that might have been a more impactful story, but it just didn't hit that for me. Yeah.
Well, I love what we got going here with these Maugrets, and I'm looking forward already to picking up the next one. But this was my pick, so someone else can pick up the next one randomly for our little side series here. Yeah, because there's a lot.
They keep talking about Maigret Sets a Trap. Have you read that one, Nick? Maigret Sets a Trap?
Yeah, because that's one of the Gene
films.
Gavin movies. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And
Give us a list of ones then.
The movie is better.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. Okay, that's good. Okay.
They really, the movie really draws the characters out and fleshes it out more than he does in the book. I was very surprised.
Find me the closest to Maigret goes on a bender. Oh wait, that's every story.
Particularly this one, yeah. But maybe that's a good shout, though, Josh. Like,
lots of Pernod.
I think Nick probably as the most read in these, you pick one because you know what we've read. We've read the 4. So we're still really newbies in this. And if you pick one for our next read, that would be cool. And am I correct in saying you're going to come join us on the pod for Halloween time? We're going to do some stuff over there, maybe some Shirley Jackson or some Arthur Machen or something.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yes.
Nice one. That would be good. Yeah, because you're more of the horror guy than us. So we like getting kind of spookier reads going that time of year. We've had some good success with it, I must say, Josh, over the last few years. We've picked out some books that have been really, really fun.
Blood Sugar.
Nice chats. Blood Sugar was a real surprise, by Daniel Krause.
Who's now huge now, right? Daniel
he's
Krause
massive now. He just won the Pulitzer.
And Whale Fall is going to be a big movie too, right? So yeah.
Awesome.
All right, so that wraps up Maigret, Inspector Maigret and the Burglar's Wife. I just want to thank you fellas for coming on here again and talking with me, chatting with me about Maigret, breaking it down.
Always a pleasure.
Oh, dude, it was a blast. Yeah, so much fun. Looking forward to the next one, and we'll let you pick that one, I guess.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it going, keep the train going.
Absolutely.
And so, do you have a next episode coming up that you want to tell people about?
Yeah, we can do that. On Lighten the Pipes, we've got Josh's long-awaited LTP Noir episode on the Big Heat. That's going to be out next week sometime. I just released an episode on Anthony Price's The Labyrinth Makers. We're getting back together shortly to read a follow-up Ripley book. We had a good time doing Patricia Highsmith's Talented Mr. Ripley, maybe 5 years ago on the show.
Yeah, and we decided 5 years ago. That's crazy.
I know, right? After delaying it for quite a while, we're going to get back and do the second Ripley book. And we know there's lots of folk who believe that her non-series stuff is better, like the Strangers from a Train, for example, that type of stuff. But we love the Ripley character. We want to do at least one more of those. So that's coming up. There's not a single episode I think we could throw or point to, but just to give you an idea what we're doing in the next little while, we're going to be reading another Saint book soon. We're going to have a look at the Saint versus Scotland Yard, a series of novellas. We've got a lot of really cool stuff coming up for August. For the autumn. I'm really excited, actually. I think this is probably one of our best seasons coming up. And obviously, we're going to have you back on Halloween time to talk either Arthur Machen or some Shirley Jackson. So, yeah, we won't say too much more, but just thank you for...
Last but not least, though.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Last but not least, John... Oh, sorry. Last but least, John Gardner.
Oh, right,
Another
yes.
John Gardner Bond coming up soon.
Yeah, we got another Gardner Bond. It's hiding up there, up in that
Yeah.
shelf someplace. It's Never Send Flowers. I think it's like the 39th continuation novel in the series or
Wow.
something. Yeah, it's not. It's like 13th or something, but it feels like 39. But we're gonna get there, and those are always good fun. So yeah,
we should
pal,
just
thanks.
jump into
Thanks.
the I was going to say we should just jump into one of the other authors, not the next consecutive one in terms of the Bond series, but
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see what we'll see.
You gotta
what we got
finish
on.
the Gardeners, man. Come on.
we
We're
will.
gonna finish the Gardeners. Yeah, only Josh. We could get that far, and then he's like, you know what? I'm out. 2 books left to go, man.
Yeah, 2 left.
2 left. I'm there sitting on my own tab doing it. But yeah, we got good stuff coming up in the autumn. So thanks for sharing us with your viewers. We know that it was a long slog, some of that kind of spoken at you stuff. But by the time Nick's finished with it, it's going to be magic. I have no doubt. So thanks,
Absolutely.
buddy. Thanks for having us on, and we'll return the favor in a couple of months' time. Come back with us.
Hell yeah. Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to all of it. Got a lot of work to do, so hurry up and get those episodes out.
All right, pal.
Brent.
No problem. Thanks again. See you.
Sayonara.
Take care.
Bye, everybody.